Salute to everyone in the building tonight. Guess who's Blizzak? It's your man Falcon Blizzak. And yes, shout out to Code It Fit. That is the intro for GTA 3. It's just a deep soundtrack, and it kind of makes sense. It's kind of relevant to this topic. Let me jump straight in. I'll come back to the chat in a sec. Let me jump straight in. I mean, this topic has been said many times by many people that Asians in Britain and maybe even the whole world, within the whole world, perform better than so-called black people, right? So the purpose of this live stream is to foster an open dialogue as to why this might be. And of course in this stream I've got some stats. So I'm trying to make sure Fridays are like stat days, and I welcome your stats if you join the conversation. But I also most definitely welcome anecdotals, what you see in your environment within your lifetime. That's also welcome. And this live stream is courtesy of JLC, who in previous streams, he vehemently believes that there is something to be said about this. And he's actually sent me a few stats via email, falconblizzak@gmail.com. And he, been trying to keep me up to date. And he's quite passionate about this. And you know what? Since this is an ongoing debate, it's worth having a stream about it, right? Right? But where are my manners, man? How's everyone doing tonight? Let me see who's in the building. I see Aaron B was the first one in. Salute to you, bro. He says, because they don't have the negative stereotypes as blacks. Okay, that's a point. Please press a 1 if the sound is good. If the sound is good, please press a 1. I need to do my mic check. Jerry Manning 1 in the building. He says they also stick together too, but it depends on where they're from. Captain Toast in the building. Salute. He says culture for 1. Someone called Ill Town Jack Boy says patriarchy and don't let our girls sleep around, which increase divorce rates, and we don't make single mothers and divorce. No offense, but these stereotypes are very real and affect percentage and stats. I assume that you're an Asian brother in the building, so salute to you. Who else is Diego Ife, aka Diego Harry in the building. Salute to you, bro. Of course, Code It Fit in the building. Our ADOS brother, welcome. Online accounts is big up. Congrats with the increase of subscribers. Yeah, little by little, man. This content strategy seems to be picking up. Okay, good. I see my ones. I see Skittles Man in the building. Salute to you, bro. I see Freedman Journals in the building. Another ADOS brother. Salute to you. And online confirms the sound check. Cool. Okay. So again, forgive my time management. I'm trying to keep this within an hour of 10. But you know what? If you think there's a better time of day for these live streams, feel free to comment below under this video. Let me know what you think will be a better time to suit. And if you're new to this stream, I would say consider subscribing for similar content about Black British people primarily. And if you're an old subscriber, consider checking out my hashtag content strategy pages. Blizzak Go, Blizzak Reviews, Blizzak 360, and Blizzak Kratom. So lots of pre-recorded, edited content coming over there soon. But anyway, man, before I reveal some stats, and of course I'm going to open this up if anyone wants to jump on and talk about this. Hopefully there are, because that makes this most an interesting debate or dialogue. My thoughts, man. So when I say Asians, British Asians, I'm predominantly speaking about Indians, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis, right? So not so much the Far East Asians. Today I was riding through Stratford and Bow in East London. This is a very predominant British Asian area, large British Asian communities over there. And it's Friday, so I saw people going out for prayer, everyone coming together, family coming together, going to pray together, all in there, some of them in their traditional garb. and it really just set the scene for that environment. Proud people doing what they've been doing for hundreds of years, right? So yeah, I would say in my anecdotal experience, from what I see, Asians do look a bit more uh, tight knit as a community. Like there's more cohesiveness, and I think religion plays a big part of that. Islamic or even the Hindi community. They proudly wear their ornaments and their paint type of stuff. Shops and businesses like proudly Asian. And I think language is a big one as well. This is something that you know a lot of people hate to compare, but I think it's just human nature to compare. And I think Asians and Africans and Caribbeans have a similar history in this country as being dominated by Britain, you know. But language, man, there's a lot of quote unquote Nigerians who will claim Nigeria, but can barely speak or will ever be proudly speak Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo. But in my opinion, you're most likely going to see Asian people speaking their language. If it's Urdu, if it's Hindi. So that's my point of view. I think it's fair game to compare. I don't see a problem with that. Some people have said in previous streams that, oh, it's not fair because you're lumping their best versus our worst. Well, we can decipher that today and see what it really is. But I think, quote unquote, the term Black British is also, uh, it's also many nations lumped into one, and British Asians also many nations lumped into one. And I think that people often cite colonialization as the reason for Africa being so messed up and backward, right? But actually, if whether you know it or not, India has been colonized far longer than any major African region or ethnic group. India was colonized from 1757 all the way up to 1947, which is crazy. That's what 190 years of domination of another culture interfering with your own home culture. Whereas most West African countries became like British protectorates in the late 1800s, and most of them like found independence in the 1960s. So that's under 100 years of being dominated by Britain. So I would say to that, if that imposed institution caused so much damage to Africa, why is it not the same for India? Right? And I think, yeah, Caribbeans have a better claim to that, to colonialism, because that also includes slavery, obviously, right? But we will look into stats in a bit, in a sec. After the stats, we're gonna open the lines for anyone who wants to put their views in. And I think, yeah, sadly, I believe that there are systemic issues in the Black community, cultural issues that make us function in a certain way that is beyond being so-called oppressed in the past. And I think to some degree, these traits or these quirks are universal all over the world, right? That tribalism on a petty scale, there's the materialism, everyone wants to flash with jewelry, everyone wants gold and diamonds, fashion statements, everyone wants to wear designer, at least a stereotypical view of the community, right? Having all these objects, all these shiny things, all these big cars leased out, looking good. I hate to say it, but I think that's a global Black issue. And of course, other communities will be materialistic and will like fashion and gold, but it doesn't seem, I guess, marketed in the way we do. You know, and I think there's a more reckless, sexualized culture as well. So all the twerking, all the wearing tight stuff, you know, that's normalized in black communities now. And it's India that has the Kama Sutra, right? But yeah, it doesn't seem the same. And speaking of Kama Sutra, let's bring out some stats. Speaking of Kama Sutra, let's bring out some stats. But let me see what you're saying in the chat. Bode Olafeso, good to see you, bro. He says we need to speak our origin languages. Yeah. Who's in the building? I think I saw Mystique. Salute to you. Good to see you. Skills Man said, I thought you include the East Asians. I think for this, just to make it a bit more fair, because that's too many nations and ethnic groups, we can just use the three and the flags of my name. I see Thomas Demahen. Good evening to you, brother. He says, currently drinking green tea. I'm looking forward to calling in. Salute to you. I'll drop the link in a few minutes. Bode says, driving a Lambo while sleeping in a shack. That's messed up, man. In a council flat, and you got a big Range Rover outside. Like, what the hell is going on? Got a Rolex on your wrist. Working in a factory, if that. God, it fits. I seen a guy living in apartments with a Lambo today. Like, you go to some council house estate and you just see these flashy big German whips. But they will say I'm hating, so let me not go there. Okay, Diego Harry says Kama Sutra is not comparable to ratchet degenerative culture. Yeah. I guess, why is it that culture who created sexual innuendo and techniques, why is it they have crafted that into like an art form, but then we're still kind of doing the raw twerking, we just can't, we miss the spirituality of it, it seems. Thomas says black people always promote materialism instead of generating generational wealth. Damn. Well, the first stat I want to show is linked to the whole Kama Sutra thing, and it's going to be STDs. So this is the rate of cases of sexually transmitted infections diagnosed in England in 2020 by ethnicity, and this is courtesy of Statista. And I believe this is one of the stats that JLC emailed me. So salute to you, JLC. I hope you call in, because you seem most passionate about this. So let me share my screen. Let me show the stats. Let me go window and let's share it. So this is the rate of sexually transmitted diseases or infections. Don't know if you guys can see that. Is that good? Do I need to zoom in a bit more? Let me see if we can zoom in a bit more. Zoom in. Zoom in. So in this chart, so this is a 2020 stat. Surprise, surprise. The highest figure in Britain for sexually transmitted infections are Black or Black British. So that is the group that involves Black Africans, Black Caribbeans, and Black other, usually mixed. No, sorry, distinct from mixed, Black other. So this is the number of cases per 100,000 people, and the Black group has 1,737. Following on is the mixed group with 1,457. Next up will be the other group. So the other usually consists of, I think, Arab, other kind of a group that isn't really high in the UK, 782. White, 438. Now, white, the obvious dominant member of the UK at 438. And then the group that we're trying to compare with, Asian or Asian British, just below 300 cases for every 100,000 people. So look at that. Look at that. Are these stats? Is this a lie? Like, is someone gonna ever say that this is a lie? This is not. Like, how do you rebut this? We obviously seems that there is a sexual issue in the black community here in the UK, right? Press one if you agree with that. There's a sexual issue with black people in the UK, where it's all that twerking, all that sexualized energy, all that objectification, BBC, no delayed gratification. Damn. So that's sexually transmitted diseases, right? I'm not gonna labor for you too long, but I just got some random windows of stats that I just want to bring up to see, how we compare. And then after this slideshow, I'm gonna open up the chat if anyone wants to talk about it. Ephraim says, "Damn, black people." Oh man. It's also thirsty guys in that stat as well. So let's not. It's not just the twerking women. There's also thirsty guys in that stat. B Money says, I thought white would be higher. Yeah. I mean, is there a case for concealing the truth? Well, I don't agree. I believe stats typically, hold better information more than anecdotals, right? But anyway, that's STIs. Let's go on to the next stat. Next stat will be random. Let's see what's in. No, not this one. So this stat, again, courtesy of Statista, it is percentage of those in employment who work mainly from home in the UK in 2020. So obviously 2020, the year of the pandemic. But I guess this stat will showcase the type of work different groups have, whether it's customer facing, highly skilled or just simply skilled, a skilled job that you can do on a computer at home. So, okay, the top group here is Chinese, okay, an Asian group, but we're not using them to compare. White, 17.7%. We've got Pakistanis, so one of the Asian groups we're trying to target is 17.1%. Then we've got Indians at 15.1%. And so that's two of the three Asian groups, that we're trying to compare with. We've got other ethnic groups, again, Arabs, other ethnicities. And at 13%, we've got the Black African Caribbean Black British group, right? And then now at the very bottom, we've got Bangladeshi at 10.7%. So people often bring up the fact that Bangladeshis, they are the group that I guess usually have the lowest quote unquote good stats or good figures, But even still, that's two Asian communities above the Black British group, which again consists of multiple nations, multiple people, right? Okay, that's that. Let's move on to the next stat. Again, we're trying to compare blacks with Asians in the UK. Unemployment rate in the UK in 2022 by ethnicity, again, courtesy of Statista. So unemployment rate, now the highest here is Bangladeshi. So again, that leads on from the previous point. A guy in the chat says, "Cause Bengalis came to UK one gen later, so they don't do as well." Okay, we can research that. But just below Bangladeshi is having 9.3%. We got 9% for the Black African Caribbean Black British group. Right, so this is the unemployment rate in the UK. Just below blacks will be the Pakistani at 7.6%. And then whites, quite predictably, 3.1% unemployment rate. And just above them is the Indians at 4.1%. Right, and I don't think people are so surprised by this. And this is the thing, and this is the point of comparing. Because if people, of face value, people will say, yes, this is what it should be. I mean, arguably, someone might have said Chinese would be in third or second, with places like Chinatown, but then think of India, think of those areas in East London where the DOR hits, Canary Wharf, Bow, all those communities, Stratford. Okay, so that's unemployment. Let's look on the next stat. This is the share of young people that enjoyed reading in the UK from 2013 to 2018 by ethnic background. Now, I think this stat is a bit dubious because how do you rate people enjoying reading? But we can all agree that reading is the fundamental skill for learning and for, in some respects, delayed gratification. You know, you're being patient to read in peace to learn or to acquire some information, right? So the Asian group, let's just use the latest year, so 2017/18 in green. The Asian group, quote unquote, enjoyed reading as young people at the rate of 64.7%. Let's just say 65%. And the black group in the same year, 60%. So, you know, pretty marginal. Again, this stat is a bit more dubious, but it might also unlock the kind of answers to who is more studious, you know, who values studying the most. But more curiously, we got whites in the same year at 54.1%. You know, so that's curious. And we also, yeah, well, mixed, we can, you know, a mix of different people, mixed race, black and white as well as in there. But still, in this chart, we see Asian preferring to read more than blacks. You could argue it's a nominal percentile, but still, that's one of them. The next stat, again, I'm going to open the lines in a sec. This is university application rate of 18-year-olds from state schools in England in 2013 by ethnic group. So university application, right? Enrolling into university. So on the top is Chinese, okay. But then second to Chinese is Asian, and this is typically, again, Indian, Bengalis, Pakistani, which is at 41.4%. And coming in behind them is in 34% is the black group. Again, black African, black Caribbean, black British, right? Black other. Okay. And funny enough, we have whites in the lowest percentile here, 28.7%. You know, which is worth pointing out. But again, we're trying to ask the question as to why are the Asians outperforming the black people in Britain? Right. Let me see what else we got. We've seen this stat before. We got families. I showed this some point last few weeks when talking about single mother homes. So here we can see Asians typically are not living alone. Black people are more lonelier than Asians in terms of living. Let's see. Lone parents, the key topic for last time. Asians at 8.8%. Lone parents in black communities, 24.3%. We've already gone through this, and this is courtesy of the government. These are government statistics. Now, the key one here, married or civil partnership, 47% for the Asian group, and for the black group is below half of that figure for the Asian groups, right? So we're the least married, most single parented, right? And of course, we've got the white stats, not too relevant. Now we're going to move on. What's the next stat? Next stat now is the top 15 foreign nationalities of UK business owners. So who runs more business in the UK as foreign people, quote unquote foreign people? So at the top we got white people, Irish, Polish. Okay, cool. We've seen the Polish shops, like good, you know, typical food shops, and you know, Irish as well. They're close geographically too. Then third, we got Indian. right? Indian, so total over 1% business owners in the UK, and they are just above Chinese, another Asian group, but we're not using them. Then further down, we've got Pakistani at 0.47%. And then the only black group in this top 15 is the Nigerian at 0.36%. So yeah, you go down Peckham, you're gonna see a few Nigerian hair shops. You're gonna see we got, I think, restaurants now are booming. What's that restaurant? Is it 815? A few restaurants in Old Kent Road, Hendon, right? But still, the end result is that Indian and Pakistani are above Nigerian, the one black group, right? Yeah. Diego knows, man. 805, yeah, 805. That's where I order my pounded yam sometimes, man. It's expensive, £30 pounded yam, but if I can't go to mum's, that's where I'm gonna get my pounded yam from. Just the same. But okay, that's business owners. And what's next? We got percentage of graduates within each ethnic group achieving a different degree classification. So what do each ethnic group leave university with? The Asian group, first honors 33.3%, black group 20%, white group 39.4%. So in university, it seems white people are coming out with better results. Asians second, and trumping the black group, right? Second upper class, 46.6% Asians. Black, 47%. Okay. Low second, third, or pass, 20% in the Asian community, and we got more in the black community. Yeah, I mean, someone says the stat is not useful. Yeah, I mean, it's just really lumping, or you might say I'm trying to boost a certain point or dynamic that Asians are doing better. But I mean, these are the stats that we have, that if you search for, it shows you on paper that the quote unquote Asian is doing better than the quote unquote black British, right? So, I mean, these are the stats. And I wanted to bring up stats because, you know, we need them. Someone's gonna divert away from this and say, "Well, if I didn't bring up the stats, it's just anecdotal. Asians aren't doing that good, and it's not like that. You don't know Asians. You've never been around them, etc., etc." But look, I've said my piece. I've said my thoughts. I brought up my stats. So if anyone want to debunk these stats or their validity, I can't speak tonight, then feel free to do that. So let me post the link in the chat. Uh, 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 uh. So the question is, why are British Asians outperforming Black British? If you think that is the case. It's a Friday night, so I got my little simpered wine. So I'm a bit, might be a bit woozy, but feel free to call in, have your say. And I guess I say this with the fact that we might be getting our first British Asian Prime Minister, as well as having a British Asian London Mayor. Um, you know, there seems to be more Asian people in the UK House of Parliament versus blacks. And again, we have a similar history in terms of being colonized by British, being dominated by British culture. Why do Asians outperform blacks is the question. Is that even a fair question? And also, we want to ask whether black people are more so stereotyped, targeted for a certain stereotype, right? That doesn't really affect Asian communities. So let's see what's to be said. We got our first man on deck, which is Diego Ife. So let's bring him on. Salute to brother Diego. How you doing tonight, bro?
I am well, brother. How you doing?
I can't complain, man. It's
Cool,
all
man.
good for here.
Nice. Greetings to everyone in the chat as well, and hope everybody is doing well. Gonna have a great weekend and all that lovely stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. It's still summer here, man. It's still
Hmm.
staying warm.
Yeah. Although it is getting colder at night, not cold, but you know how typically like July, June to a certain extent has got quite warm nights. I feel
Mm,
like although it's warmer in the day, once the sun starts to set, it feels a bit
the
chilly. I don't
chill.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that. I feel that. Same when I'm riding the bike actually during the day. It's
Mm.
yeah, I feel that chill. We also got Thomas coming in. Let's see what let's greet Thomas. Thomas, how you doing this evening?
Good evening, brothers. How are you?
Yeah,
I'm good, Thomas. How you doing?
I'm good. Just sipping on green tea.
Why are you sipping on green tea, man? You sound pretty Asian to me, man. That's some Japanese-ish. All that
Oh, but
Zen Buddha stuff.
bro, I just after work I went for a long walk from Lewisham to Old Kent Road and came back.
Wow.
So no, if I didn't go to the gym, I would always take a long walk.
I feel that, man. I promote that. That's a good long distance as well.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, but
yeah,
bro,
with Diego first, let's see though. What do you think in general? Because I think you don't truly align with that idea that British Asians are doing better than Black Brits, right?
No. I mean, look, I do think that they are, depending on how you want to look at it. If you're taking the black people collectively at a snapshot, then yeah, you can't deny the stats. I'll say, based on the stats I've looked at, Indians are certainly outperforming black people. That's a given. If you lump the Gujaratis and the Punjabis and the
Mm,
others, but Pakistani, uh, sort of, it may be a bit naked. There's not much in between. I think that just sometimes, you know, Asian like Pakistanis and Indians sometimes look more similar because of obviously your common Punjabi and certain the movements after pre-partition, post-partition. So
mm,
they kind of don't look dissimilar. So someone sees an Asian, you see a guy driving a nice car and he's Asian, they'll assume that he's Indian. He might be Pakistani. Do you understand?
mm,
So
mm, mm.
so they benefit due to their similitude with Indians. They benefit from that positive immigration kind of image. You get my point, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, with the Bangladeshi, someone rightfully made the point that they're a bit more of a recent presence because obviously India, they were, obviously partition happened, I think, in 47, and then since then their boundaries haven't shifted much.
Mm,
Not to go into too much of a history lesson, but with Pakistan, it was Western Pakistan, which was current present day Pakistan, and
mm,
present day Bangladesh was Eastern Pakistan, but the West were dominating the East, and then the East basically embarked on like a liberation war. So, long story short, they won. They became Bangladesh in 72, and so because they are the more recent independent sovereign state out of the three, I think that may also have impacted the flows of migration thereafter, if that makes sense.
mm,
So that might account for why they've not had the mobility. And also, I'd say too that with Indians, most Indians that you'll come across, like they're like second or third generation, be it that their parents or grandparents were part of that group that that were expelled under Idi Amin. Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
from
so a chunk of them were those people, and
right.
in some cases they got access to certain financing because of their status and circumstances. They got access to capital that black people didn't get access to. In fact, quick anecdote, I'm not sure if I told you back in 2009, 2010, I was organizing a black business exhibition called Best of Africa in the Caribbean, UK. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on any stream before.
Sounds familiar. I think you did. You
Yeah,
might have on
yeah.
our one-on-one.
So, okay, yeah. So I mean, what it was when I was in uni, sort of predating that, I was part of the African Caribbean Society and became a bit disillusioned with the lack of, even if you want to say, okay, different groups obviously have their different nuances and stuff. The
Mm,
common denominator was that people weren't serious about doing anything productive. They just wanted to meet up, chinwag, talk some nonsense. Okay, that's it. Let's go. So I said, okay, they're not receptive to the idea of pushing ourselves. Let me try to do something productive. I basically produced a black business directory comprising lawyers, um,
mm,
caterers, barbershop, you name it, just any industry you can think of, right? Was
Mm.
very arduous. It covered. I had to do a lot of miles of driving, like 10,000 miles in the space of a few months. But anyway, I got my directory. And then the exhibition was a way to try to at least say, if you don't want access to a market or strategic partnerships, this is the path. Now, the whole point of me saying what I'm saying is I learned a few things, man. I learned a few things. And ultimately, when it came down to it, I had to postpone. And then because of sabotage from the people who were supposed to benefit, I eventually had to cancel it. And I lost a lot of money off the back of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing was that showed me back then that, kind of trying to collectivize people, that the interest is just not necessarily there. Whereas I'm not going to compare what I try to do with the long-standing Asian societies, but on the Indian case, they have separate Indian associations, which are distinctly different from all the other groups, if that makes sense. So they were very smart in terms of that. Like I said, they had access to capital. One of my customers from when I was doing that exhibition, he was complaining to me because his business was doing well. They used to do like, all this kind of like how do I explain it now? Like billboards and is it pop-up stands and like when you do like wraparounds for cars where you kind of change the color of the body kit. So he was
Right.
making good money from it. He now saw opportunity to expand. So I was trying to help him, but the bank were only really lending capital to his white and Asian counterparts. I
Mm.
think that was Santander. Yeah. So I think he also banked with Barclays. He wasn't getting much luck. So even recently now, these banks are saying that, the black business populations are actually not kind of getting access to capital. I'll see if I can get the link for you. But
So,
not
I mean, let
cap-
me, in layman's term,
yeah.
are you almost saying that basically it's racism? Asians are being preferred by the so-called native British population from the
Ye-
get-go.
I'd say yes. I think don't get me wrong. There was some pushback. You can imagine because a lot of the pushback came from white working class people. Do you understand? Because they saw
Mm.
them as a ostensible threat before
Mm.
they eventually just kind of accept them now more so than previously. But yeah, they didn't have the same level of barriers. Do you understand?
Mm.
So I
Okay.
seen this from the inside. You get my point. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that the access to capital for many black businesses, yeah, was
Mm.
constrained as a result. What I'm saying to you is that the banks now are doing what they can to try to get more businesses open up so that they can actually rectify that, so that they
Mm.
can. You get my point? So it's almost like they're trying to best each other. So now is a good opportunity for black British businesses like to kind of come up because there's more capital now than there has
Right.
ever been. Do you get my point? So I just thought that I'd put that out there.
Okay. Okay.
But I can say more in a bit. I'll let Thomas
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah. No, great opener, man. Great opener. Very informed, as always, as to expect from Diego. Okay, Thomas, second man on. What do you think, generally speaking, about British Asians if they're outdoing Black British people?
In my opinion, British Asians they're outperforming British Black people because there's a couple of things you need to think about. One, they they have a tighter community. Um, they have a
What do you mean
strong
by tight
sense.
community?
So
What's
they
your
don't. When I talk about community, I mean, for example, you have a family of
hmm
Asians, so let's say Indians or Pakistanis. They'll always um, they always promote generational wealth. They always, when it comes to the hair shops, the corner shops, um, the food shops, even some of the butcher shops in Southeast
hmm
London,
hmm
ran by Asians. Always go to Lucian, go to Peckham, go to Brixton, you see any bare Asian shops there. So yeah,
hmm
they also promote, and when it comes to education, they go into fields actually matter. So STEM, business, finance, politics. Whereas if you see black people, they do some liberal arts, which is nonsense, man. Like They do liberal arts, sports. Bro, remember BTEC
I don't
TV? I'm
know,
like,
man.
what is this?
It looks like the British Asian community, they are also quite dispersed in terms of what they study. Like we've got some people in media, a lot of people in media. I think there's a BBC radio station that was, they had that Bangla music. It's like they're everywhere. Sport, cricket, you know.
Honestly, I get that, bro. I get that. Some of them enter sports, though. I'm talking about the majority. There are a few
Mhm.
exceptions, but the majority of like Asian people, they're in STEM, they're in politics, business, finance, politics. They're into fields that have the most impact.
Mm-hmm.
And also, bro, when it comes to when it comes to creating a family as well, they don't they dismiss all the stereotypes
You're bugging a
that
little
that's
bit,
been
bro.
implemented on them by Caucasians, and they say, hey, you know what? Can you hear? Am I good now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you
Am
sound
I good
good. You
now?
sound good. You there?
All right, cool. So when it comes to creating a family, bro, am I good now, bro? Can you hear
Yeah,
me,
you're good. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
bro? Can you?
Yeah, can you?
All right, cool. When it comes to sorry, my internet's lagging, man. I may be on some AOL action. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, there's just a delay, but just say what you need to say, bro. It's no problem.
All right, cool. So when it comes to creating a family, Asians are on point because some of them do arranged marriages. I find arranged marriages good and bad. So it's
Mm-hmm.
good because you know vetting vetting is an absolute priority. So the fathers always choose um their children's spouses, and you know I understand that to be good because they try that you let the parents vet for the children. But when
Mm-hmm.
I say it's also bad because you're removing the freedom of choice for the children. And you know what? Hold on, bro.
When, yeah,
I know you have some opinions on this, but when I
yeah.
think about arranged marriages, bro, especially in the UK, brother Vulcan and the brothers on the panel, I think it is actually good in today's climate. It's actually good because
Mm,
the parents are actually doing the right thing. They are not their children to be
mm-hmm.
exposed and corrupted by the liberal Western culture. So that is a good
Mm.
thing. But I want to know your opinions on arranged marriage, brother.
I was having this discussion with a friend as well. Like, the limited choice of the limited choice, is that really a big problem? We're in an age where there's a lot of people complaining about there not being available, a lot of incels coming up, people complaining that they can't get married, women, they all of these issues. So arranged marriages seem to be like a solution to all of that. And on top of that, you get like
Exactly.
you get validation, as in that person, like you said, has been vetted. They come from this stock, this environment, this is what to expect from them. And then there's that whole web of culture and shame keeping them on track, and support as well, right? It's not just someone you've met off
Yeah.
of Tinder, some random stranger that you're trying to form a strong bond with and make a family with. It's someone that is known, so it's like, yeah, I mean, the argument was, well, who wants to live in a world where you can't choose? A lot of these people don't actually love their spouse. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, if you're talking about marriage, man, I don't think that is based on lovey-dovey type of stuff. It's like a business, it's like a organization, and it is.
Yes.
So my
Yeah.
stance on arranged marriages, man, it's arranged marriages is better than what it currently is now, which is hooking up, smashing and dashing, and going on to the next person and doing the same thing. You know, you might get your little 2-3 year relationship, and then that breaks up, and then you're doing the same thing over and over again, and then you're out of time. You know, you're 50 living. You know what I mean. It's better than that.
Yeah, and I think I think because you know, in the black community, brother, educated traditional black men are seen as outcasts. We're seen as educated lames. So you really see the writing on the wall, brother. You see how are you gonna outcast? How are you gonna ostracize the probably the good men in the community, the logical thinking men in your community, and uplift Pookie, Ray Rays, and Tyrones, the roadmen? You're
Are you
uplifting
saying?
them
Are you
rather than the
saying? I
men.
hate to cut in. Are you saying you don't see that in Asian communities, like Asian women looking for the what's the Asian comparative to
I
Pookie
don't
Ray
even
Ray,
know,
bro?
bro.
Sadiq,
I don't. I
Sadiq,
don't.
Salam, Abdul, Faisal.
I don't. I don't know, bro, because I've
Mm,
never seen it. I've
yeah.
never seen it. I asked my Asian friends, what is the Asian equivalent to a Pookie and Rere? Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Oh, someone
Okay,
said
okay, man.
Ahmed. No, Ahmed is getting
Ahmed,
girls as well. Ahmed is getting girls.
Ahmed
But
is
hold on, let me
studying
to finish.
doctorate. You know, he's studying pharmacy. He's sitting there with a white coat, giving you buttercup medicine. You know, yeah. But I hear you, bro. I hear you, bro. We'll come back to that. Let me just
But
quickly
hold
add
on.
in.
Right, cool,
Let me just quickly add in,
cool,
brother
cool.
Friedman's. You know, get his perspective. Then we'll go around. Okay. Salute to you. What's up, brother Friedman's Journal? How you doing tonight, bro?
Oh man, doing great, Falcon Black.
Good to hear, man. Good to hear. It'll be interesting to hear your perspective as an American.
I mean, the parallels are all the same, right? I mean, they
Mm,
are all the same, right? This group is outperforming Black people. Well, they have a different culture, right? And it makes it super clear. Um, you know what? I should have put this in the back. There are, excuse me, hold on. There's a stat. Actually, another guy in the Manosphere in America did a video on consumer spending.
mm-hmm,
Right. So in America, Asians are what you call, I guess, Orientals,
mm-hmm.
right? Or people from the Pacific Rim area. So Asians have the highest level of academic achievement. So he's going over the consumer spending survey and who spends the most on education.
Yeah.
Asians. Who spends the least on education? Black people. Right.
Mm.
This is all very, very predictable. Right. So if you have the worst culture, you're going to have the worst results. You
Why
know,
do you think it's similar? It's a similar trait all the way, from here in the UK. I'm in London, and to you in America. Why does it seem like this is the pattern all over the world on different continents?
because Pookie, well, not Pookie, but negative things have gravity. I mean, they
Mm,
have a real, just like the human has been hacked, right? Social media,
mhm.
negativity sells, right? Negativity has the gravity, right? That's what draws people. So this Black American negativity is like a virus, right? So and who's getting it? All the other Black people around the world, right? So now you're getting the same thing in the UK, you're getting the same thing in Africa, right? It is just this negativity. Positivity does not sell, right? What's that
But I mean,
phrase?
I have to rebut that. Why is it? Why are black people more susceptible to that negativity? Because all
I
people are prone to evil and lust and all those deadly sins, right?
I would say the majority power structure in Western countries encourages it, right?
Mm.
Listen to what I said. The majority culture in Western societies encourage it. They are not held accountable for their actions,
Are you
right?
saying
It's not
racism
their
then?
fault. No, it's not. Just like, I mean, there was this video in that went and asked, liberal college students, "Oh, do you think black people can get ID to vote?" And so basically, it was a cavalcade of negative opinions of black people's ability to just get an ID, right?
Mm.
So then they asked, same guy went out and asked black people, and of course, black people were like, "Oh yeah, I got an ID. You go down there to this, that, and the other, and you get an ID, right? No big deal, right?" But the power structure that especially runs locally, black affairs, so to speak, right, in large cities, right, panders to the inability of black people to handle society, right?
Mm.
So there it is. And so to your question, why does it proliferate among black people? It's allowed and encouraged among black people. They don't do this to other communities, man,
Uh-oh.
right? Other minorities don't get sold, you can't do it by
Mm.
the majority culture. They don't. They simply do not. And the other brother is right. Successful black people are the outcasts, right? In anybody else, you go, oh, okay, let's see who's black and succeeding. What do they say about it? Right? You go talk to those people and they don't give you the answer you want to hear, that it's not your fault. And all of a sudden those guys are pariahs. So it's
Mm.
like, oh, okay, well, you just want to keep on failing then. I don't have a problem with that.
Mm.
I don't.
Oh, great points, bro. Great points. It's good to hear again that American perspective. Anyone wanna jump in with what Friedman said?
Yeah, I would if it's okay.
For sure.
I should be quicker than previously,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
what I found
oh,
interesting,
go on, Diego.
uh, sorry,
Nah, don't worry. Thomas just has a delay.
okay,
It's all
okay,
good.
cool, yeah. So Friedman's journal made some interesting points. Reason why I'm probably jumping onto them just because there may be some parallels with the UK, but it reminded me of a book I read by a controversial figure, Thomas Sowell. And he draws a distinction between the different kind of, basically it's like a bifurcation of black people. He says that before you had the great migration of black people from the south in the US to the north, right?
Mm-hmm.
The northern, so that's like the black people that had been in the northern parts for generations, yeah. They had a certain kind of way of doing things. They had a different lifestyle, different worldview, and in fact, the white people that they lived in proximity to respected them. Obviously there was some racial biases, but that it was the migration. They call it is it the Great Migration? There's a word they have for it, but that
Yeah,
now
it's a great migration.
yeah,
Yeah.
that now brought in people from south that had their own particularities. So there was a clash between, oh, you think you're better than us, and so what it says in the book was that there's a certain kind of redneck culture. In other words, because of the proximity with rednecks in the deep south, yeah, they came from no man's land. Like past Carlisle and Newcastle. That Scottish borders.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Yeah, they came from there.
The
So
wall.
apparently, hmm?
The wall.
Yeah. So apparently, prior to them really coming, black people didn't have in America that kind of thing. The whole kind of mean mugging. What are you looking at? They didn't have that thing going on. Apparently, they picked that up from proximity with them. They were more the kind that had more of like the ratchet culture that you see nowadays. That was their
Mm.
culture apparently. Their devaluation of education, that was theirs. If you again, I've read on this extensively, so I'm just sharing this.
Yeah.
Black Americans coming out from the slavery, they valued education very highly, particularly because they were banned in many cases and severely reprimanded or reproached by their slave masters or
Mm-hmm.
overseers, because it was like they don't want them to have, that, you understand, that awareness of
Mm-hmm.
kind of what they're dealing with. If you look at many of the successful black people coming out from America, many of them had to study in stealth to get to that point, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
Yeah.
your poorest under under resourced schools in America, black schools or schools that predominantly taught black people, it basically, they produced a lot of talented black people. What now happened is the degenerate popular culture, I'd argue. I'm skipping out quite a bit here. Degenerative
Yeah.
popular culture and white liberals. White liberals have probably been the worst thing to black Americans. Do you understand? They're the ones that validated dysfunction, that they, some of the dysfunction that had been picked up from proximity with rednecks. They said that, it's because you're black and because of your unique history on these shores, it's okay, you should be like this. So that's where the idea things got transposed, and rather than it being a thing like, look at the sacrifices our forebears made in getting education, education all of a sudden became lame. That's not American black values traditionally. Do you understand? So that now became, it wasn't like this is recent in the grand scheme of things, it's quite recent, this mentality. So anyway, what it led to is a bifurcation in class. And when I say class, right, because I'm not a proponent necessarily of soul per se, but if I see content that is again, because he's not the one that he's gonna have drawn on sources from various other places, you understand? So it's not like he wrote this from left field.
Right.
Different people he's quoted. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I'm gonna wrap it up, but essentially what I'm saying is there's like a class difference. BGS makes a good point. You know, the octanes where you have your social climbers, some of them who may have grown up in the hood, for example, or areas that are somewhat hoodish, and although they like mobilize, they still obviously have kind of like the attitudes of
Yeah.
growing up. So then the women won't necessarily get with men that might be a good fit for them. You know, like a assortative mating, they'll get with a guy that is not doing much because that's their comfort zone. Do you get my point?
Right,
Then there
right.
are other people that are more strategic about it and they consolidate on their new class position by getting with someone that is more kind of amongst, you know, that kind of level. So what he's saying basically is that men that are productive, like they're trying to get with women that are effectively of a different world. And when I say class, I'm not talking about like, oh, I have these kind of mannerisms and posturing and what have you. I ain't talking about that. I'm literally talking about where they look at themselves in terms of the directions they're going with. Ideology counts for a lot. It's a difference between people who have talent but basically don't move an inch. They move sideways at best because they think it's not black. Do you understand?
Hey,
And their forebearers will be literally turning in their graves, actually seeing this. Do you understand? This decadent view, and you know what I'm saying? There's almost like a negative inflection point from which
right.
there's not been any real kind of like, can we kind of like can we redeem the situation? There's no desire to do it anymore because, like I said, what white liberals in America set in motion has not been G-checked. It's continued up to the present day.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, I'll leave.
Yeah,
You know,
great points. You know, going in deep, great points. We're 1 hour into the stream, guys. So please like the stream if you're enjoying it. Consider super chatting like my man here, Michael Meachuk the fourth, with the consistent 199 super sticker, man. I appreciate you, Michael. One of the top moderators here. Also an American, you know, so good to have you guys in the stream. We got DJ Kuda in the building. But let me quickly go to Thomas because he wanted to respond to what Friedman said. Then we go over to DJ Kuda to have his thoughts. And then we've got more people in the back to bring on. But Thomas, what was on your mind after Friedman's points?
I mean, he's right because I took, bro, as I was walking through New Cross, bro, I saw like I remember one time I'm walking. It was around 7:15 p.m. I saw a couple of Keishas, man. They were wearing some provocative outfits, like you know those shorts, those jean shorts.
Oh, Daisy
I can
Dukes.
literally see her back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I can literally see their behinds, and I was just shaking my head because I was walking here. I came out of Sports Direct. Yeah, just returned return and replace some shirts, good shirts. Yeah, but as I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
walking towards New Cross, I just saw them. Yeah, outside the wearing those shorts. I'm like, what the hell are you wearing? What are you wearing? But that just shows, bro. Show me an Indian one dressed up like that.
Would you say
That was
what you
spit shame.
saw what you saw is also both equally represented in the African and the Caribbean community? Would you say it's like 50-50 to be
Yeah.
dressing up like that?
No.
Oh, they got Asians out here
100%,
that
100,
they got hella Asians out here that dress
100%,
like that.
bro.
Hmm.
100,
Okay,
100%, bro.
bro,
I'm talking.
brother.
I'm talking about. I'm talking. Go on, bro. Go on.
No. Finish what you've done, and brother DJ Kuda wanted to have a say, but
Mm.
No, I'm talking specifically in the UK. I don't know about America, but I'm talking about in the UK. Show me a Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian chick dressed up like Keisha's. They'll get instantly shamed,
Mm.
completely shamed. There is a
Yeah,
level of
by their
fear.
culture.
Okay,
Hold on,
you're a
hold on.
bit windy, Thomas. You got a bit of wind in the background, so if you can find some like
Oh,
solace, come back, bro. But let's go to DJ Kuda, another
wait, can you?
American bro.
What's going on, man? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Good to have you, man. First time up. I've seen you around the
Yeah,
sphere.
yeah. I'm everywhere, man. You
Salute.
did. But kind of touching on a bunch of things, shout outs to everybody here. Shout outs to my boy Mike Matroke in the building.
Yeah.
About Americans, when we were released from slavery, we were slighted. You know what I'm saying? The slave masters and a lot of white people here had a huge problems when the slaves were released because we had all the skills. You understand what I'm saying? We knew how to build. We knew how to, how to do certain
Mm.
skills to really build. We just didn't have the business savvy. So, the key then at that point was to basically finesse us out of work all over again, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And black people do value education, not in the same way I would say other people value education, but what they did with the sisters was they definitely made the sisters value education, but in another way. How it's not that they don't value education, it's basically how it was presented. You know what I'm saying? And the education that was presented in the black community was also presented with feminism. You know what I'm saying? Just basically continuing the matriarch. So black people do value education. A lot of, but more so the women. Psychologically, it was really to push the men out of those areas, and just men would just become disinterested in a lot of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a long story, but basically, we just got finagled, in business.
Right.
Going to the Asian thing, it's a lot different. You got to talk regional wise. You have East Coast Asians. They operate a lot different. You got Asians out in LA. They operate different. You
When
got
you say
hop.
Asians, do you mean South Asians like the Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistani, or do you mean more like Koreans, Chinese, Japanese?
Koreans, Chinese, Japanese.
Mm.
Because I'm seeing everything that a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions. I'm out here in Thailand right now.
Right, right.
So I've seen damn near every single type of Asian you can think, and it's mind blowing. But it filled in a lot of gaps. You know what I'm saying? It does fill in a lot of gaps. Like I said in the chat, a lot of the Asians out here that's really running things, they got hijabs on. They Muslim. I don't know how to explain to a motherfucker Thai Muslim, but they come in with skills. They're already
Mm.
trained. It's not that they're progressing, but what other countries do, and America's doing it also, and a lot of places are doing it also. The thing is that in America, to tell you the truth, is culture shock to a lot of people because we're actually coddled in a sick way. But
Mm.
um what they do is that they train up they basically, it's like the sleight of hand. If you're going to lose your job in a lot of places, and it's fucked up, but it's the truth, they make you train your replacement. What they
Yeah, yeah.
do now what they do now is they train your replacement, and they replace you with somebody that's not from here, and they pay them less, and not even pay them less, they probably even pay them even more. But like I said, these people are coming into the building with skills and stuff like that. They
Mm-hmm.
got it.
Okay, so
They
skills.
get they
Okay.
even if they pay them more on the front end, it's business. They get more off the back end or something like that, or they're
Mm.
getting extra. They're getting a higher output of work. Because these people are
Right.
just happy to be here. So a lot of people, especially like with Africans and stuff like that, there's a disconnect, and a lot of people don't get it is because a lot of these people, before they get here, they're briefed. You know, they done spent 2-3 years kind of being around Americans, but from their perspective in their country. So when they get here, they're like, "Oh, you're not gonna run a trick on me. I know how you guys are," and they already got their own perspective by the time they get to America or wherever the hell they're going. So
Great points, bro.
yeah,
Great points.
these people are pre-trained before they even reach, the UK or before they reach anywhere.
Right.
So, and the thing is that you're not supposed to see 2 years of work or something else. That's them, and they're not supposed to undo 2 years of work. That's how they were trained. So that's why better employees in certain environments because
Okay, bro. Great points. We
yeah.
got David in the house. David, I mean, DJ Kuda touched on skills, and he touched on, I guess, the model minority kind of label that Asians tend to have. What are your thoughts generally, or with regards to skills? Are black people all over the globe? Are we kind of lazy? Like, do we lack in the skills department? Do we not have a lot to offer society? That's why, and it shows in these stats. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree that that's true. That black people are on the
What the hell?
What did he say? Was he trolling?
That's a troll, bro.
Yeah.
The
He's a
funny thing
patient
is
troll
that in the
as well.
private chat, he put up his camera and just to confirm who he was. What a goofy man.
What the
But
hell was that?
okay, to anyone,
Bro,
is there a laziness issue?
Yes.
I would say it's a lack of direction. So there's definitely laziness, but you see, with me, maybe it's because I'm philosophically inclined. I like to not just look at the cause, or sorry, the symptom, or sorry, how can I put this? I don't like just to look at the effect, but I like to look at the cause as well. Because that, my take on it is if people are more determined to really get to the root of something, or at least close enough to it, and ultimately find a solution if the will is there. You need to know what you're prescribing. You understand? So, I think it comes down to a lack of direction. If we're looking at, say, for example, much of the Caribbean people that came here, and I'm talking particularly about the second generation. So we're talking about those that will be like, boomers, maybe like young boomers-ish, and Gen X. Many of them, there was like a kind of cultural vacuum. And so the kind of messages and values being pushed out in Black America, increasingly, they became like, they started to adopt them to varying degrees, if that makes sense. Because it was a big gap, if that makes sense. There was none of this kind of like materialistic culture and hyper consumerism with their parents, if that makes sense. Using because obviously we know about like West Africa, Nigeria and that, right? Again, there wasn't necessarily a fixed culture because these countries were experimental creations. Do you understand? They're not organic. So what I'm saying is that, again, what was the common denominator amongst them was the consumption of Western culture. Whatever they could get from outside, basically became what they worked with. Does that make sense? So the net result of that is there's not a kind of there's not, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's not a bigger picture. Do you get my point? A lot of what they do is visceral. You understand? Yeah.
What I would say too is that, on the outside, even though, like I said, you do have a lot of progressive Black people that will become doctors, dentists, they'll get into all these type of professions and stuff like that. But what a lot of Black people really do value is more of like entertainment, singer, rapper, athlete. We kind of go into those fields instead of owner. We kind of go into the more, I wouldn't say trivial fields, but like, there's nothing wrong with being a basketball star, but you're not the owner of the team. There's nothing wrong with being we kind of get into that kind of debacle.
But that's
Bro,
a good point. That coach versus player thing is a good point. But some people here would say that the Black coaches are being suppressed. Like I remember there was a guy, Paul Lentz, he was a manager of a football club, and it seemed like he got like, from what I remember, like people just basically disrespected his leadership in a way. So is that an effect? Is that an effect too?
Yeah, because they don't own. Yeah, it's because they don't. It's because they don't own it. You know, like black people, we rap our ass off, but we don't own the rap business.
Bro,
We don't own the rap.
I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me ask you
yeah,
this.
for sure. Yeah,
Let
Thomas,
me.
come in, jump in. Sorry, one sec, Freemans. Thomas wanted to come in, then we come to you, bro. Then we come to the new guy.
So, bro, was the question of black people lazy?
Yeah,
Was that
based
your
on the skills, based on the lack of
primary
skills, you
question?
know, being useful for the wider society. Are Asians more
Of
useful,
course,
you know, with those skills to society?
absolutely, absolutely, brother. I'm gonna go on a bit of a rant. Black people, yeah, they don't value education. You do not. They do not value education. I barely see black people in STEM, finance, business. They're always into liberal arts. You know, I just don't get it, bro. I have a STEM degree. Yeah, I surround myself with serious black men who have STEM degrees. What whenever I talk to a liberal black person,
Is
they
it just
don't
me
value
or is Thomas
education,
Morgan a
bro. They
little?
like money.
You're boring out a little bit.
Okay.
Right? Am I good?
Yeah, you're good
Oh my
now, but
gosh,
Yeah,
you
you're
man,
might
good
I'm
now.
on that
kind
AOL action, man. I don't know what's going on with my internet.
of.
Am I
Okay,
good
you
now,
can keep
bro?
going, bro.
Can you
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me?
you're good. You're good.
All right, all right, cool. Yeah, so like again, there is all this. Black people have this victim mentality when things are not going for them. They always push excuses upon excuses to other people. They always say, "Oh, the white man's putting me down. That's why I'm not doing good." No,
Well,
it is
okay,
your
okay.
choices.
A quick pushback. A quick pushback. Are we not victims of racism?
Yeah, no, but bro, everyone's a victim of racism. Everyone
Mm.
is. Everyone is. You can't
Yeah,
say,
but not to a certain
"Oh,
degree.
no. No, we need to have this talk, bro. Everyone's a victim of racism. Black people see themselves as
Not to
at the bottom of the
not to the
barrel.
same extent.
Hold on, let me finish.
Not-
Let me finish.
Okay, Thomas, go for it.
Let me finish. Black people see themselves at the bottom of the barrel, so they have a defeative mentality. They always have excuses. Oh, racism. Oh, discrimination. Oh, prejudice. Oh, the white man's putting me down, so that's why I can't fulfill my full potential. Blah blah blah. Why don't you face? This is reality. Where there's a will, there's a way. Why don't you look at successful black men outside the entertainment business, outside sports? Because again, why are black people always, when it comes to success, why do black people always look at athlete, rappers, entertainers? It's so backwards. Well, that's why Asians are outperforming us. They are so many Asians who are into productivity and they're very successful. The Google CEO, um, Microsoft CEO, all
Okay,
Asian.
okay, okay. I'm sorry. A
Can
quick
I
pushback again. I have to put in this kind of devil's advocate because I mean we were kind of talking about being blackballed with loans and such. So
That's
it
what I'm
seems
trying to
that
say. You can't
Asians get a different treatment from
wait.
blacks
Hold on.
historically. So and you know in
Hold
that
on.
whole pseudo racist doctrine, you know on that kind of graph, blacks were always at the bottom. Asians were somewhere in the middle. You know, not too dumb,
No,
but not too you know what I mean. So is this something that black people really put on themselves, or
no,
was it like a
let
label?
me let me kind
Yes.
of chime in here. You can't beat a head start. All right, that's number one. You're not gonna beat a head start. Number two, Asian people, the reason why they're progressing is because they have numbers, and then also they make sure purposely that their systems and things that they do are complex. It keeps people out. Okay, it's complex. So the way they deal with things and the way they do things is more complex. Is to keep a lot of people out of their business. You know, it's not like they overcame racism and none of that stuff. Like I said, like even out here in Thailand, I've experienced racism. But the thing is, it's more so ignorance than actual racism. It's not like the same racism that I experienced in America. The thing is that a lot of black men, even in America, even in the UK and in certain places, we walk around with this chip on our shoulder, like, yo, you better not say the N-word. Yo, you better not do this. Yo, you better not do that. And we walk around sometimes, it's a legitimate chip, but it's an unnecessary chip, because when you go to certain
Mhm.
places and stuff like that, you got to remember, these type people, it's more of ignorance. I mean, of course, if they knew our
Mhm.
history and culture, they would have a little bit more sympathy before
Mhm.
they make a move, or anywhere in Asia. But the thing is,
Mhm.
the matter,
Hey,
the thing
hey,
is,
we got
Man,
some
what
that,
noise in the
background noise,
background.
man?
What's going?
hold on, that's not me. But
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that's me.
the thing
Apologies.
No worries, no
the thing
worries.
is that they've never enslaved us, so they don't owe us no type of fear, or hey, I gotta watch myself around this black guy,
Okay,
or I gotta,
Well,
they
hold on,
don't they
hold
don't
on.
owe
okay,
us.
okay. One sec, Thomas. Let me quickly bring in African Millennial because he's been waiting for a bit, and he made this post that I think we need to also chime in on. He said in the chat, he or she said black parents are failing. So I want to get African millennials' point of view, and we want to kind of answer this question
It's
as
a
well. Black
she.
parents.
It's a she, but hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, yeah, great topic by the way. I'm obviously
Appreciate
not in the UK, but I'm also in a country where the black immigrants are Caribbeans and Africans, and it's really disappointing to see collectively what we're doing in the West. Like, you hear this all the time. Our parents travel for a better life, and then I feel like in the second generation, it just goes completely wayward. Um, to go back to the point that I made, black parents are failing. Like, I'm sorry, I get it. Like the average, well, I'm African, so I'm gonna speak more so from an African perspective. The average African parent will like work 5 jobs in order to have a fancy house, and they'll just leave the kids alone. And but you can't do that. Like, that's not the way that you raise children. And then I've
Mhm.
seen some other black parents like raise their kids how, let's say, Caucasians are raised, and you can't do that because, see, Caucasians, right? If they do crimes or if they commit crimes, they'll have the system back them up. They'll get bailed out. But you, as a black man or black woman, you can't do that. So I don't know why parents are not being honest with their children. I don't get it. It's disgusting. Like, I see so many young women like pregnant, right? And they're
Mhm.
like, so I'm just like, okay, so you came from a single parent household to only reproduce that? Like, that's so stupid. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, but I'm gonna leave it there for now.
Okay, great points. Good to have you. I'm sorry, we need to quickly jump to JLC, man, because brother JLC was the real the real player here who started this conversation. He has strong views, so I really want to hear JLC's viewpoints. So what's up, JLC? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, man, I'm not well, man. I just joined the show 5 minutes ago. I've been battling some sort of cold. It's COVID negative, but I'm in bed sweating up a storm, man.
Damn, man. Prayers to you, man. Prayers to you, man. You'll get through
So
it.
I joined only
Yeah, but
5 minutes ago. So can someone give me a synopsis? I ju-
Basically, are black Asians outperforming black British? Why? We touched on recently laziness in regards to lack of skills, lack of being useful to society. Uh, are we victims of racism more so than Asians? Earlier on in the stream, I went through some basic stats, some of which you sent. And, as expected, we are kind of on the lower end of those stats, those particular stats. And Asians, predominantly Indians and Pakistanis, are on the top strata of those stats. So, what are your general viewpoints in regards to our British Asians doing better than British black people?
The answer is yes. On a socio-economic point of view, they are. And although the immigrants that come over, they may have a bit of a head start when it comes down to Indians, because a lot of them who come over have medical backgrounds and technical degrees. Pakistanis do not, and Bangladeshis do not. So we can't use that as an excuse. So then we come down to the second and third generations. Again, the gap actually, I would say, widens because subsequent generations for us and African descendants, we drop off massively. We rarely improve. And that's the thing that's most worrying, is that Asians that come over, they improve with each generation. Whereas we drop off and get worse with each generation. I've seen this a lot with the Africans as well in London. Yeah, you get your success stories, but a lot of them are getting involved in this knife crime business. You know, second and third generation Nigerians. I'm seeing this, right?
Is this your personal opinion, or are you seeing this through stats that we're getting worse and worse over, you know, through generations?
I mean, I just don't hear as many stories. This is my observation. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I don't see as many cases of corner shop owners who came over doing low-skilled jobs who are black, and then the children go to private school and then become home secretary or so on and so forth. It very rarely happens for us.
Potentially prime minister.
It very rarely happens with us. So the answer is yes, they're doing better. The reasons why, you know, we've talked about this before: the family structure, the community, the culture. These are all things that they have in conservatism. That's all things that go in favor for them. Potentially, you know, other things we won't go into biologically at this time. Maybe. I'm not saying it is the case, possibly.
Okay, we're going to touch on that later in the stream, man. We have to talk on this again.
And in terms of the solutions, you know, I mean, my mum, a personal story, my mum, she's from East Africa, and she used to sell sugarcane and make home grade alcohol so she could go to school. And she used to tell me stories that she used to get her ass lit up because she used to go and break into school to get an education. And she told me this when I was 5 and 6 years of age. And it motivated me to not be a disgrace to my ancestors and to her, and to throw away opportunities that were given to us with much less expense, such as free education, to try to improve myself and help my family back home. So when she dies, at least I'll be able to contribute, you know, to at least give some of them a helping hand. You know what I mean? And I find it incredible that so many of us come to this country or were raised in this country, and we don't make use of the good opportunities that are afforded to all of us to at least try to improve and give credit to our ancestors.
Why do you think we don't? I mean, surely we want to make our ancestors proud. We want to be in a good situation here in the UK. You know, we want to be respected. Why do you think we don't take advantages of the gifts that we have as British citizens?
That's a very complex question. I'm not going to pretend like I know the answer, but I think one of the major problems is that if you don't have a strong man in the house, that's kind of like your attack dog, your protector from society. If that man is gone and not there, any sort of outside influence from the media, from society, could pretty much permeate right through. Because unfortunately, in my humble opinion, I don't think women have as much of a natural barrier against foolishness as a man can in the house. And these other cultures, particularly Pakistani and Bangladeshi, they have a whole group of men who are unified to blockade and damn near set up a culture right here in the UK that's their own culture, that can safeguard them from STDs, homosexuality for the most part, and things like that, you know. And that's why it's very important to have a group of men working together. If they don't work together, there's no men there, you get what you get.
Right. Hey, great points as always, JLC. Great points. I look forward to hearing more from you from the stream if you're healthy enough, but get well soon. We've got Mr. Uganda in the building. Great to hear his thoughts. You know, he's a resident here in the Falcon Nest. Good to have you up, Mr. Uganda. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, can't complain, man. Can't complain.
So I think I'll sort of bounce off JLC's comment. I'll make my own comment in addition. I think through the lens of traditional femininity, it's essentially meant to be porous as far as allowing people to love you, as well as you allowing yourself to give love freely to people who come to your abode. You're meant to be hospitable, like a house, a great host, whereas masculinity, traditional masculinity, is pretty much predicated on building barriers and setting boundaries and reining people in for the purpose of structure. You know, it's kind of as if the woman would have the creativity, but it's the man who sort of enforces it, and he keeps it within the confines that it needs to be in order for him to execute his protection. Like, you can't protect someone who doesn't want to be protected, hence you sort of have to put barriers in place so that you're able to do your job effectively. But in any case, let me move on to my actual point. I think what's going wrong is that because you've already explored
1 second. Can't watch these tenders.
Let me pause it. Never mind.
Oh my god, what is going on there then?
It's on BBC Open. Okay, I just put the volume down. Never mind.
What are you doing, fam?
I'm watching yesterday's episode. but I need to catch up. But anyway,
Man still watches EastEnders, bruv. What?
yeah, I mean, never mind in it.
Anyway.
I think you've already explored the statistical data, so I mean, I can be anecdotal.
Yeah, go for it.
What I've seen is that from the Asian people who I see, no matter if they win or they fail, the parents don't yield the culture whatsoever. They don't yield the culture. They don't allow their child to assimilate into certain tropes. They pretty much keep their child in reins. And what I've seen is that even the child who fails through school, I've seen the parents like salvage the child's identity just by keeping them within the culture and the confines. And I think again that goes back to what traditional masculinity is, because I saw the fathers were the ones who did that. They sort of brought the child, if the child dated the white guy and the father wasn't okay with it, the child reined that daughter back in, was able to sort of shield her, and no one knew anything that this girl did, and she's able to be available, she's able to look upscale, she's able to be like a hot commodity for the men who want to come and marry her. I think with black parents, what I see is that black parents are sort of conceding their culture every so often. So they want to be their child's friend, they want to be relatable, they want to be all of these things in the UK. Whereas back home, they were disciplined because they were kept in tight reins, they had routine. Over here, they don't have routine. They readily sort of give up these things. And what I see is that the number one group of black people I see are Nigerians from my eyesight, and those parents do not yield. They encourage their child to read, even if it makes them miserable. And I think for so long I thought that was the wrong way to do it, but you have to look at it this way. You make the child work hard when they're young, so they have so many options when they're older. How many children have been squandered by their parents wanting to be their friend, that when it's time for the child to have their own autonomy, they don't have any options because they've been a flop. The child, that both parents wanted to be their children's friends, and it was the child's detriment. Whether it was the mum telling the child to do work but not enforcing it, or the dad letting their son play PS4 for 12 hours a day, the child is now at an age where they have option. They have the ability to walk out of the house, but they have no options because it was squandered. The key is to exercise a stable culture and keep the child in it. And a major facet of that culture has to be reading your books as opposed to reading drill.
Okay. I mean, are you kind of saying that Africans and Caribbeans have a weaker culture than the Asians then? Because if we're this less resilient to maintain our cultural kind of trends and norms, surely we have a weaker, easily, kind of a culture that's easily departed than the Asian. Do you think that is the case?
I think this goes because I think all of even when there was a conversation around are black people the biggest victims of racism, I feel like that conversation, like this one, is predicated on someone's psychological state. It's about your perspective. If Africans and Caribbeans want to be weak, they will be weak. If they want to buy into this little imagery that we are the biggest victims, we're not going to win, we have to lose, we can't see ourselves being represented in the judiciary, a lot of things like that, then that's what will be. And so I feel like Nigerian parents, from what I've seen, don't do that. They act like they're the best, and their child comes out thinking they're the best. And I think it's cultivating a self-esteem. Even if it's stupid, cultivate your child with a self-esteem that allows them to feel like they can take on the world. How can you motivate children who feel like they're going to lose? All of this self-prophesizing of the police is out to get us, we're going to lose, we're black, oh, the system's out to get us. If the child feels like they're going to lose, then they should just lose then. That's what I would think.
And I mean, talking about self-improvement, and this is why I'm always going to be at odds with that typical black pill mentality, because there's something about being alive today where it's like it's now or never. If you're gonna do something, now is the time to do it, rather than suspecting that there's no point. We're all gonna die someday. It doesn't matter. But great points, Mr. Uganda man. Let me quickly bring on Ephraim Mackworth, because he's been chilling in the back. So Ephraim, Mr. Uganda touched on self-esteem. But what are your general thoughts
course.
with regards to Black Brits versus Black Asians, or sorry, British Asians?
Well, throughout throughout our generation, especially Black people in the UK, I think what we've been through is the fact that we've more or less taken on more of the wider majority of their culture of more of liberalism and more of to each his own self, more of individualistic ideas, sort of a collective like what we have in our like what we have in our back home with our parents and so on. So
Mhm.
that is kind of why we're seeing a decline of us as Black people in our success in terms of industries and also socially, economically. Because if we look at our parents back then, they have a collective of where they need to either put their children through school or it's nothing. So it's either school or it's nothing. There's no other
Mhm.
choice.
Yeah.
And with that in place, it has kind of made majority of Africans who came to this country, if anything, they ideally want their children who are born in this country to do better. But once there's other devices of where you can do what you want, this, that, and also the kind of protection of where law is into play, the children don't really care, and if anything, they don't give much regard unless unless they get older or in the future, and then they realize I need to be serious and have regard, and that's
Mhm.
where it will be too late. So that's also that also can be an implication of why we as Black people we're kind of behind with the Asians, because Asians they have like it's similar to white white people, but Asians they mostly have like a future plan for their children. Even with those who do the
Wait a
work,
second. Wait a second. Are you saying Black parents don't have a future plan for their children in
they
general?
do have a future plan. I'm not saying they don't have a future plan. They do, but the children themselves they don't want because of pressure. They don't want to, you know, sometimes align themselves to what their parents want.
I disagree, sir.
In what sense do you disagree?
Okay. I don't like this whole I don't know your name, brother, but I don't like this whole talk of always like racism, and it has to do with the environment, because Asians, as this topic is claiming, Asians and other people are raised in the same environments and they don't have these problems.
Mm.
Hey,
But
Calvin,
that's
can I
the
quickly
thing
just
is,
One
say
second,
something?
Shah. Let F frame rebut, and then we'll go to Shah 25.
oh
But that's a
man,
good point, AM.
the thing is, the reason why Asians don't have this problem, because Asians know how to confine to what white culture is be given to them. We ourselves as Black people don't confine to them. Even if we confine it, it's still a problem within us to confine to it. Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, racism is still there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great points. Great points. Again, I must salute Michael Meachrook the Fool for another consistent 199 super sticker, man. I appreciate you as always, man. Look, it's Friday night, and I'm taking out the time to open up the stream. So if you're enjoying it, feel free to show some support. You don't have to, but you know it's always good encouragement. At least, at the very least, you can like the stream, comment your thoughts. Also helps the algorithm. But salute to you, Michael. Appreciate you in these streets. But then we also have Shah 25. So let's hear Shah 25's thoughts. You've seen him before. Someone's got some crackly noise in the back, so please mute up if you're
Yeah,
going for a piss or something.
all right.
But we've got Shah 25. What are your thoughts in general on this?
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
why I guess Asians in general are superseding or being better than blacks in the community, etc.
Most Asian, yeah. So I'm gonna say most Asians and Chinese, Indian folks, most of them they're not looking for jobs. They're just looking for positions to like help their own communities in the sense that they have a stronger socioeconomic status that aligns with whites. That's why they consider themselves as honorary whites, and they don't really see themselves as, people of color. That's just the truth. And, as a matter of fact, in America, Canada, it's like that. But in most cases, some Nigerians and Africans and Caribbeans, they identify more with their nationality as opposed to, just being black.
Right. Good point. Let me just quickly shout out Captain Tolson for the £20, the big man super chat. Man, coming in with the strong pounds. I appreciate that, man. He says, great topic. Plus, happy the Premier League is back on. It's back on, right? Oh, yeah, it's always in August, man. I might follow it this time, man. I might try and follow the league. But yeah, I appreciate that, Captain Tolson, man. Always in the building, always showing love. I appreciate that, bro. We've got African Alliance in the building. He's confirmed he's a brother, so it will be good to hear his viewpoints. So, what are your views on this?
Allahu Akbar.
Hey, fuck off, you trolls, man. Waste of life, man.
Okay, moving on. Let's not bring attention to these dummies. These are real black people, These are not the old kind of like white trolls that will come here and show some.
Hold on, bro. Like that's just a shame, bro. That's a black person who's trolling and we're talking about important issues. I mean, this shows you.
You might as well just ignore the chats, unless if it's a super chat or some sort of money,
Huh?
It just shows, man. Oh, sorry, bro.
Yeah. Let's hear Diego's thoughts, man. We haven't heard Diego for a while. What's up, Diego?
Yeah, cool. No, I mean, there's been some very interesting, quite compelling contributions. There's a couple of things that came to mind. African Millennial made a interesting point about parents failing us, and I think that's an understatement. If we're talking on a broad level, I think it's an understatement. She mentioned about the stereotypical image of certain African parents working infinite jobs, right? But from what I've seen, and I don't know, maybe this might be different in Canada, but here in London, UK, whatever, most of the time that they're working all these jobs in the course of neglecting their children is to send money back to where they come from. It's not because you'll find that if parents are working crazy jobs, there surely should be enough money to cover the bills. But for some reason, there's this kind of perpetual lack. So where the hell's the money going? If the money's not being spent, right, on just about on basics, it's not, there's a certain level of poverty or lack, but there's money being made, and we can people like say, mortgages and all that. So no,
Look, one sec. Let's not try to interrupt. Let's try to wait until someone rounds up the point.
Yeah. So this is my point. At the end of the day, if there is a plan, right, then it stands to reason that the sacrifices are going to be proportionate to the outcomes. But that's not what happens. A lot of these, JLC said about the certain like Africans who are like second and third generation that are getting caught up in that culture of, like, I've seen it before. If you look at many, you Google certain victims and certain like those that are convicted, you tend to find many African names. I'm seeing a lot of them now, victims and perpetrators. So I'm saying that there is the result of a cultural vacuum that's opened up, and the parents have failed because by and large there is no sense of direction. It's not even a thing where it's like, okay, fine, where are my children going to grow? Ultimately, like if they're having children, what's the deal with the future? Having that care about what comes after them, I just don't think that there's enough evidence for it.
So can we say Asian parents are generally better than black parents then?
Yeah, no, 100%. If we're talking about setting direction and parameters, I do think so. So when we talk about the environment, I think the parents have a lot to answer for. And you know what I think is sad? A lot of black people whose parents have let them down, they don't tend to have as much smoke or as much to say about them as they do by directing their frustrations at other black people who either had a better situation or who, despite the kind of limitations they experienced, they managed to transcend that. So I think there's a certain, if we're talking about the product of those failure parents, they're not necessarily doing the right thing, they're not standing right by, like I said, other people that are being productive. You get my point? Lastly, remember the point that I sent to you about lack of access to capital for black. That is legitimate because there's a plethora. I put 2 other additional links and I stopped because literally when I typed on the Google search engine, there was a ton of results that came from credible sources as well. Do you understand? So you get my point. The capital stands for a lot of black people who are going that path is because either they've not gotten themselves into certain jobs because they you know what I'm trying to say, certain fields there might be limitations, you know, in the corporate world. In some cases they have got in there, but they've had certain frustrations and the work politics that they tend to experience. Work politics affects everybody, don't get me wrong, but it tends to be particularly racialized for black people, and in my experience, black men in particular. You understand? So
Great point.
if you look at a lot of the entrepreneurs, they're black men. So what now happens is they have a situation where all of the savings that they got, and then on top of that, maybe credit cards, and any loans is basically having to be maxed out to provide working capital, sufficient capital for their businesses. But then the other groups are getting access, and I ain't talking solely from their parents. I mean, cool, we're talking about other, you know, banks, other financial institutions. So I just think that if we're going to have these kind of topics, it's very important to include that, because not only
Yeah,
important to
for
explain
sure.
their story, but for people who are having those aspirations, they kind of need to know what they're getting up against. So yeah.
Great points, brother Diego, man. That's a great insight, great points.
Bro, do you mind if I
Let
add
me
on
just
quickly?
let me just quickly shout out Freedman's Journal, man. He gave me a PayPal donation, man. I really appreciate that, man. And this is ADOS again, so you know, let's stop any sort of rift between different groups of black people, man. We're all kind of in the same kind of situation. So salute to Freedman's Journal. 1 second, Thomas, man. I'll come back to you. I just want to try and get everyone who's on. So KB Jones just joined, and then we'll come back to you, Thomas. Okay. So what's up, KB Jones? How you doing? What's your view on this, bro?
Evening, bro. Evening, chat. Evening, panel. Can you hear me
Evening.
clear?
Yeah. Hey, you good? Probably a little bit of noise in the back, like
All right,
ruffling.
1 second. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. No
Sorry, I'm in the room with like a few people. Hold on 1 second. Hold on.
worries. No worries.
All right. All
Let me
right.
just quickly shout out JLC, man. JLC again. He's the grandfather of this topic. You know, he's got strong views on this. He's 6 right now, so let's hope the brother, recovers well of the weekend. He says, we have to know why we're in the UK. My mom always told me you're here to learn and earn. If you're not doing that, why stay here? Ooh, great points. 17.99, bro. I appreciate the strong UK pounds in the super chat tonight. Thanks a lot, JLC, for the support. But go for it, KB Jones, man. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, sorry. What I was going to say actually is very similar to your last comment. Is I think somewhere along the way, we as black people kind of lost sight of what the mission was coming to England in the first place was. And if you don't mind, let me expand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And so anyone in the chat who kind of knows me, one or two people might, and if you see my channel like last 3 years, I'm always someone who's really tried to question, look up documentaries, history in terms of Black British identity, be it African or Caribbean. Particularly a big part of it was like the Windrush and in the 60s, 70s, a lot of Africans immigrated to England and also Asians.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Hey, sorry, bro. What's that background
me
noise?
being someone,
What?
Sorry, bro. There's
no, I'm in
there's
the quiet
background
room.
noise. I can hear background. Oh, okay.
Can you
Okay.
hear background
Sorry, I
noise?
heard
Everyone
a
else,
lot
can
of
you hear
background.
background noise?
No, let KB speak, and then I'll say if it gets any louder. But it's cool, KB. Don't worry.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I was just gonna say, so me being someone who was born in '86, right? I'm
Yeah.
someone, and I was born in like West London, Ladbroke Grove, and so, and why I'm saying that significantly in that part of West London is because my uncle, my dad, etc., will tell me stories. Now, if anyone really knows about not particularly just Britain and London, Britain and the UK, but London, there was a group called the Teddy Boys. Yeah. They used to wear Dr. Martin boots, black Dr. Martin boots. They had skinheads. They used to be around the Edgware Road area, Ladbroke Grove area, Westbourne Park area. They was in the 60s, 70s. They used to give not British, Caribbeans and Africans, a lot of trouble, particularly racial trouble, quite openly. There was this thing with Asian people called Paki bashing. So when my people like my mom, my dad, my family, my uncle, etc., came to this country, that was like a normal thing. So by the time I was born, obviously things have changed. But one thing they said to me was, between them and Asians, up until a particular point, Asians were identified as black as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a thing called Paki bashing, but it was, some people were in the same realm as us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only really, and I'm talking maybe through my family, hearing history of Brixton riots, etc. Now, if anyone from London, you guys will know what I'm talking about. If you're aged between 30 and 40, is that Asians were along the same realm as us. Now, there was a period of time that also said, my family also told me that, particularly in the mid to late 70s, there was such a thing. I mean, I can't think of the exact schemes, particularly off the top of my head right now, but there was particular sort of schemes, loans, grants that were aimed towards ethnic people in terms of starting businesses, buying homes, etc. Now, from
Are
what I've been told,
those positive schemes, or enable, like, were those
well, there
schemes to
seems to
help
be
them to?
schemes. There seem to be schemes that seems to enable them to buy, get on the property ladder back in the mid to late 70s and 80s, and start businesses. But from what my family have told me, the incentive was, and as we can see, a lot of these businesses, which most of them are like shops, corner shops, utility, etc., within our areas. So there was an actual thing where they was getting accepted more. Like before my parents bought their first house, they got declined I think they said 3 times, and they had the pay slips, they had the credit rating, etc. But they just got turned down 3 times just because. And because they've only been in this country maybe 10, 20 years, they didn't question it. It's just, a no. Where they saw other people of the same sort of age group that were Asian getting accepted, etc. So there was things like that as well.
So a preference from
There's been that
white
advantage
Brits.
with that. Yeah, in some respects. Now, from what I've also observed as well, because not just from hearsay, but myself, I grew up in, West and Northwest London, where I'm from, but particularly my high school was in Northwest London. And if anyone knows that kind of part of area, I went to school called Appleton, which is the area on the road is very predominantly Asian, Muslim, Hindu, etc., etc. So I've also had my experience with these people, and they do kind of have a heads up. But what I will say is, when it comes to patroning their own businesses, they tend to have that silent agreement that even if we've got differences, even if we're different religions, one's Hindu, because if anyone's been around Asians enough, and I can
You're
say this
breaking
confidently
up a
because I have
tiny bit.
been for
The
the last
sound is
20.
deterred. The sound is going in a little bit, bro.
Is this better?
Yeah, it sounds cleaner. There's a little bit of a delay, but yes, that sounded cleaner.
It's clear
Is that
now.
better?
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right,
Ooh,
cool.
breaking up.
So
Okay, yeah, now you're
yeah,
there.
what I will say is with goddamn. All right, let
Ooh,
me sort my mic out and I'll come back in. Let me not hold it up. But yeah, I'll come back to my
no,
point. Let me sort my mic out. Carry on, guys.
no worries. Appreciate it. We haven't heard
bro.
Friedman's journal in a bit. Friedman's, do you have anything you wanted to
Can
jump on? I didn't want everyone to club you out.
No, just real quick. I was another brother was talking about Thomas Sowell, and on the culture tip, he's absolutely right. Like there, at least in America, there are 2 poles between the black redneck and I'll call it the educated New England black, right? And right after the end of slavery, right, Northern blacks came down to the South and basically were trying to educate everybody they possibly could, and the whole thing was excellence at all levels, right? So Howard University in 1920, they're competing with Harvard or Princeton or whatever. They're trying to be the best. And then the Great Migration basically took a lot of the black rednecks and put them in basically big cities, right, where they weren't previously. So, you could have, I don't know, New York would say have 50,000 black people in it. And then after the Great Migration, it went to 250,000. You know what I mean? And these were all people not acculturated to, a success standard, right? Still the black redneck. So on that, and then football. So this was they're talking about. I watch the Premier League, so I like it. But they were talking about black football coaches, and I was wondering. I'm not familiar with that much with UK culture, but are black people associated with like executive positions? Because they've had this debate in the U.S., right? Oh, there are no black coaches in the NFL, NBA, yada yada, right? So that's long past. But by that time, you had black generals, you had black senators, black representatives, black CEOs, right? The CEO of American Express was a black guy for like 18 years. So you already had this established history of being in executive positions and performing well. Right, long before you got a quote unquote black coach. So I was wondering, does that exist? Are there like black generals? Are there, black CEOs, captains of industry, stuff like that in the UK?
Precious few, to be
Yeah,
honest.
Diego's the man to answer that.
Yeah, so because I've been keeping track of it. It's precious few. Funnily enough, there is one Zimbabwean billionaire, but he's a rarity. You understand? He's like an anomaly, to be honest. If you look at the top level, I think you've got one black woman who is she's a CEO. She's in that kind of like is it the C-suite? So I think she's on like $1 million a year. But you'll be hard pressed to find them. They're very few and far. To answer your question, in the Premier League, managers wise, I still believe that there's a level of they don't necessarily trust them. I think they trust them a bit more than they did before. I think it's more of an image. It's a bit like not to like on the football pitch, for example, there was a point where black players were not seen as good for playing like like the number 10 silky kind of position. They assumed it was more of a white.
One second. Who's making that noise?
What the hell is that?
That can't be
I
me.
don't know what's going on.
I don't want that disrespect on this thing, man.
Yeah, I was confused by that because that's not a mic.
Someone's doing that stupidness straight.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but yeah. So to finish what I was saying, so there's like a certain kind of perception. Do you understand? So at the point in time, yeah, I think you had one woman that's a director. She seems to be mostly black women that get those kind of executive positions in the football. Obviously, not in the football manager or head coach positions, but more like at board level, driving like the commercial kind of side of things. Yeah. So yeah, it's few and far.
Right, okay. Salute again to Michael Meachok the fourth for the 199 Super Sticker, man. Again, I really appreciate your support. Always supporting. Follow suit if you're liking what you hear. We're gonna wrap this up in about 20 minutes, and I'm gonna end this stream talking about, I guess, IQ. I mean, I think we have to go there because JLC always kind of lingers around that. But Shah25, you got any points you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, IQ to me is just another form of things that the Europeans created, particularly the Germans. They use that as a coping mechanism to see whether who's intelligent to least intelligent, and to see like who's capable of doing something and stuff like that. So that's what I believe in the whole IQ theory.
So you don't believe in IQ as a test
No.
of some
No,
sort
I
of
don't.
intelligence?
I don't believe in IQ in the sense that one is superior. I believe emotional intelligence is something that most people need to have. Because not a lot of people have emotional intelligence. They just think I have to get this done, and they don't know what's right or wrong, so they'll just make anything up. But I've taken IQ tests myself, and I would say I'm a little above average. And these are not like actual standardized tests. These are the ones that you can just do online.
What was your score? Just out of curiosity.
My IQ score was probably 121.
Yeah, that was around my score, man. Like I had a friend who was basically in like psycho analysis, like therapy, so she was very good at that. But yeah, I mean, around the 120, so quite dumb.
Yeah.
Can I go real quick?
Yeah, sure, Friedman. Actually, one sec. Let me be fair. Shah25, did you finish your point? Because I know you just answered
Yeah,
mine.
I was gonna add on. I was gonna say that most of us, we don't even employ our own people. We just think that working for someone else that doesn't like us is gonna bring us dreams and everything, and that's not how it should be. It should be the opposite, And sadly, rap music and all this like coonery and buffoonery that you see on national television with all these like major celebrities promoting it. Yeah, that's definitely did no good.
So are you saying that's something that's really impacting black people?
Yes.
Because, to be fair, we don't see the Asian guy in drip, with the grill, with the Jordans or whatever, the Air Force Ones, doing this buffoonery drill stuff. So, I mean,
do it, but it's just like they don't get promoted as much. They don't get, targeted as much. Don't get me wrong. I've seen Asian dudes, smoke and party, and like they do a lot of crimes in terms of like credit card, and all these sorts of schemes. But they do
Yep.
it in a way that doesn't target them. They do it in a very smart way. They, try to keep it within their own circle as a group of friends. Like they don't have that trust issue that most of us do.
Okay, hey, fair points. Friedman wanted to jump in.
Yeah, just of course IQ is real, but I mean, if you in any way believe in animal husbandry, right? You know it's real, right? Because you've had dogs bred for intelligence. I mean, come on, right? Certain dog breeds just they look at you and you think, are they trying to do my taxes, or what are they going to do, right? And I'm a dog owner. I have like pit bulls. Pit bulls, they're okay intelligence, but I've also had German shepherds that are just off the charts, right? Go unlocking doors you don't want them to unlock, doing all types of mischievous stuff. So
Just
of course
curious,
it's real.
what's the most intelligent breed of dog? I'm just curious.
One of the most, like German shepherds, the Germans, man, they have real smart dogs. German shepherds, the freaking Belgian Malinois are super smart. Who's the other dog? I want to get a giant Schnauzer. They're really smart.
Right.
Someone
said border collies. Those smaller dogs.
Border collies in general. But yeah, those particular dogs were bred for intelligence, especially like giant Schnauzers, because their usefulness as like a guard dog comes from their intelligence, not really from their physicality. So, but anyway.
Okay,
but yeah, IQ is real.
Sorry. I just need to jump on with the IQ thing, because typically speaking, and I don't want to bring up the IQ charts. We all kind of know, in most cases, the Asian countries do better than the African countries. So, do you believe that is a factual thing, that Asia in general is pretty much smarter than the African populace?
Well, like that's the thing. IQ measures a lot of things, right? And one thing it measures is cultural bias. So if a certain group does not prioritize education, they're going to do worse on IQ tests. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, there are tons of factors, right? So, families that have only 1 to 2 kids tend to have kids with higher IQs, right? Families that have dozens of kids tend to have lower IQs. And if you do that as a group over millennia, well, what's going to happen at the end of that? The result is very, very, very predictable. So, there's no secret to it, right? Just like I said before, Asians in America spend the most on education. They spend the most time studying. That's why they achieve the most. It's not, they're not super smart. They do the work. So if you have, and that's all you're measuring in IQ, right? And that's the biggest thing. You're measuring cultural bias even more than intelligence.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Friedman. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like,
no problem. I gotta go though.
Okay, Friedman, man, I really appreciate your contribution, man. It's good to have you up.
Thanks for the time. I
appreciate your donation, man. Thanks for the support.
No problem.
Here's what I have to call what he said out. Like he said that they invest in studying and stuff. That's not true. Asian people, they don't like just buy books from Walmart, grade 6 level education. No, they don't do that with their kids. Asian people just naturally are smart in most education. They don't even, some of them don't even study. They just have God-given natural ability to do things without even studying. Whereas us, like, we have to
Are you
study
being sarcastic when you say that, or do you believe that?
No, I'm actually being serious. Most Asian people, they're not like they don't study. They're actually naturally smart, like in terms of tests and everything. Like they score very well. Like most of them just have like very good sense of IQ. But I'm not trying to brag or say anything, but it's just that most of us like African American or
What do you mean by
black
brag?
males.
What do you mean by brag? Are you Asian? Just to clarify,
No,
are you Asian?
no, I'm not. I'm not Asian. No. You can see
Oh,
by
'cause
my
you said,
profile picture, I'm
oh,
not.
it's just that you said brag. You said brag, so
Yeah,
I don't know why you would be
I
bragging.
said most of us blacks, like we tend to play sports, which I do. Like I did soccer when I was like very young. I played basketball, and I did play football, and I did pretty bad in elementary school. I was a very in terms of school and everything, I was a very bad kid. I used to actually get in trouble a lot. I used to go to the principal's office. They said I had behavioral problems. They said I was like different from other kids, and those were things that actually hurt me. And all the other Asian kids were just laughing. It's
Okay,
something that
okay.
I'm not gonna
Okay. Let
Oh,
me
you
let me.
crying.
Okay, bro. I understand, but I don't. It's good to talk about it, but it's past
Why is
traumas,
this
bro.
guy crying? I'm
Come on, let's
sorry.
not laugh at this.
Yeah, that's mean to laugh.
But anyone want to jump in with regards to IQ, because I
Yeah, I
that's
don't mind.
always going to be brought up.
Yeah, I don't mind. If I may,
For sure, Diego. Yes.
so just to clarify, on previous streams, I didn't say that it was useless. That's not what I said. I said it's not an absolute measure. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it will have relative uses, but it typically, in order to get the higher IQ, I've done the test. He's making the noise again.
Okay. SHA-25, I'm gonna have to kick you off for a sec, okay? Because there's some noise from you that I don't understand why it's coming
No,
from.
it's not me. It's not me. It's just a fan.
Okay, can you mute? Okay, just mute up then, please, if you can. If you're
But
not,
why
when
does
you're
the fan only
I'll
come up
turn off
when
the
I
fan.
speak?
Okay. Just mute up for me, SHA-25, if that's okay. Thanks, though.
All right, can you hear me now?
Okay, sorry, Diego.
Okay, so as I was saying, it's not an absolute measure. It's really measures dexterity. So if somebody understands how the IQ test works and obviously applies those measures, then yeah, you can say that's a form of intelligence. But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's not an absolute one. So yeah, you can use it as a measurement. What I would say though is that I don't think that, yeah, I do believe that some people are born with intelligence, but I think in the main, intelligence is something that is really kind of cultivated through your environment. You understand? I think there's certain variables, such as the kind of education you get, the persistent, because obviously it can't just be left to schools. I know a lot of parents, especially in our so-called communities, leave it to the schools to do so, and they don't realize that it's actually something which they're also supposed to contribute to as well. Also, I'll say this much as well, because when it comes to data collection in African countries, it doesn't tend to be as comprehensive and as reliable as other countries. I don't know if that would have a meaningful difference, but what I do know is the sample sizes. When you look at the stats that are compiled, the sample sizes, are they all equal sample sizes? That can't be said 100%. You get my point? So
Right.
case in point, let's just say in Europe and North America, let's just say they're able to draw on like 1,000 different IQ test scores, right? Relative to that, how many would they get in Africa? I'm very, very certain that it would be only a percentage of that. So that's going to skew the final results. You understand? And then also the age of the data as well. How recently is it? We know that when it comes down to accumulating data in certain places, it's going to be easier to get that, more recently than others. Do you
Right.
understand what I'm saying? So that's that's what I'll contribute there. Make of that what anyone wishes to.
Right. Hey, fair point. Great points. We got Jessica X in the building coming in as we round it off. What's up, Jessica X? How you doing?
Good. Better late than never.
Yeah, man.
I came up because I like Shah, this notion that black people are just inherently less intelligent than Asians or any other race. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it. I do feel like there are cultural
Jessica,
differences.
there's a little bit of static in the background. It might be like your mic might not be plugged in fully. Some sort of white noise type of thing. But anyone wants to, as Jessica's fixing that, anyone wants to speak on the IQ thing? Is it real? Is it okay? Jessica's back,
Bro,
I think. No.
bro,
No,
Okay.
I'm
can I come in?
No, that's
I'm not.
Shah.
No, what I'm trying to say to
Bro,
like
Okay,
Jessica.
sorry. Let Jessica X speak.
Oh.
Let Jessica X speak.
Is the static gone?
No, it's
Yeah,
not there.
it's
No.
gone. Okay, I just want to say like this whole IQ theory. It was just a whole.
One sec, Shot. Jessica was speaking, so let's let her speak, and then we'll come back to you. And then we go to everyone else.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, there are cultural differences. We know that within Asian households of all sorts, the Chinese, the Indians, all Asians, education is pushed as a priority, and therefore it's only natural that they'd have higher scores. I don't think naturally, just off rip, they're more intelligent. It proves that if we nurture ourselves and we try, then we can also reach that too. So it's about prioritizing education.
Okay, Shah 25. Do you have a rebuttal?
It's just what I'm gonna speak on. I'm gonna say from
Okay.
my experience, like IQ, that whole concept was just created to like be putting like certain people in like social norms of hierarchy in terms of intelligence that most people would consider in most education fields and stuff like that. And no, I wasn't saying that it has nothing to do with race, but like the fact is like the whole concept of who's more intelligent and stuff like that is what the whole IQ concept is supposed to be, and it shouldn't matter as much compared to emotional intelligence, Jessica.
But okay, let me rebut that. I
And
would say, in my ignorant opinion, black people are very or highly emotionally intelligent, but that doesn't relay into standard of living or
yes,
economics.
mhm.
But then when on paper you look at IQ charts and you look at the geography, you look at the most of at the African continent put in red as lower IQ. Obviously there's other historical
No,
implications, but it's like it kind of rings true, unfortunately, when you see the standard of development, living, growth, outlook.
mhm.
Is that an intelligence issue, or is that just being on the bad end of fate, bad luck?
I would say a little of both, but I'm not gonna say it has nothing to do with what others think of you as opposed to what you are. But IQ is something that most people can achieve if they just really like start reading a book or start like do something like solving a Rubik's cube or solving like a particular problem if you are that individual that has a certain skill set or something like that that most jobs want to see. But the whole concept of the IQ theory is that Chinese and like Indians and all these like other Arabs and like all these like non black groups, they particularly see themselves in a way in which they have like higher IQ than other like groups that aren't that fit that subcategory. But the whole like point is that it has nothing to do with what you can do. All it can like shows that who's more intelligent on a standardized test and who can like outperform others. And for example, me like in elementary school to, and I would say probably all the way to like, middle of high school, I was a very dumb kid. Like I had very bad grades. The guidance counselors told me, that I have no hope, I have no future, I have nothing. The only job I could do is being a bricklayer or some sort of like, job that is like, very useless. That's what they told me when I was in high school. But as soon as I went to college, it all changed. My marks were getting much better. I was studying, I was like doing things online, and I was actually, talking to other experienced individuals who have the same knowledge and experience over 30 years within the construction industry. So yeah, IQ is something that has nothing to do with your performance. It's what you do through the day, and if you have a balance in your lifestyle. And another thing I want to make is that what Jessica said, when I'm not African American, that kind of got to me a little, because just because I'm not your stereotypical Ebonic sounding Negro, that doesn't mean that I'm not one. You can clearly see my face and you can clearly see what I am. So that was very disrespectful of what you just said, and I'm not trying to start an incident, but that was very it just bothers me.
No, I'm sure Jessica X has the stomach for the beef, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, I can kind of see what Jessica's saying. You don't look like, surely you might have some Asian. Do you not have some Asian heritage in your lineage? Just out of curiosity.
Who, me?
Yeah, you don't?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Before, the reason I said that is because before, I'm pretty sure that you said you're somewhat like,
No, I know that wasn't me.
Aboriginal kind of.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
But
that's you're not African American.
Yeah,
you're not African.
No. I said I have some ancestry to that. I didn't say I was that, but I had some ancestry, and I have some like Red Indian, like Native American.
Okay, no problem. We don't want to jump into your your orange too much, but I mean, we got Ephraim. If you want to jump in, feel free. You got Mr. Uganda. If you want to jump in about the IQ thing, was that Thomas or was that Mr. Uganda?
I did want to say something.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's me, bro. It's me.
Essentially,
hold on, bro.
What is that? Damn.
What the hell is that?
Okay, Mr. Uganda, go for it, bro.
So I think I'm quite not so much surprised. It's obviously been a lot of topics. I mean, not a lot of topics, but it's something that's talked about here and there. But it's like this, I don't know, there's like this propensity to always look at IQ. Not always, but there's like this propensity to look at IQ as the metric by which we have to follow with. But it's like there are people who go their whole lives with never having their IQ measured and they're successful. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like, it's a metric where you might not fit into it, but with critical observation, all because you don't fit into a high IQ bracket doesn't mean you're not successful. You might have to find another metric where you succeed. It's one of those things where it's like you might not succeed in running, but all because you're not a fast runner doesn't mean you're not a fast cyclist or a really good trampolinist or a good gymnast. I just think we have to look at metrics which affirm us as opposed to denigrating and making us feel like we're not going to be accomplished in anything. Like there was this study, and it was actually a psychological study I looked at years ago, and it was saying how it was either kids in Zimbabwe or kids in Uganda or both. And the study found that the kids in these regions walked at a very, very, very early age in comparison to many, many other populations, white, black, or Asian. And I think stuff like that, early developmental success, those things aren't talked about on the global spectre. But do you see what I mean? If we were to assess the metrics with things like early developmental walking, African kids would be succeeding with flying colors, but they decided that this isn't going to be the metric that we define success by. We're going to define success by something which wasn't crafted by any black person, and we're going to hold everyone to it. And so, in my opinion,
the thing about that physically developing quick physically, unfortunately, a lot of like these so-called far right wingers, they use that as to say, well, the antelope and all those other herbivores, they can walk almost instantly as soon as they're born. But then basically some far right people say that okay, we are quick to develop, in early age, but as we get older, we basically decline in cognitive ability. I know it's extreme. I'm not trying to, but it's
Right.
like, I hear what you're saying, man. It seems like all the information out there is out there to denigrate.
Can I jump in?
Exactly. There's a difference between information and instigation. And so we have to be careful when sort of applying the metrics because they could have biases embedded in them. And what I notice is that whenever Black people bring forth the discussion of IQ, there's always like this readiness to accept that Black people have a low IQ and that Asian people occupy the higher echelons of IQ
Can,
stardom. And
can I
I
jump?
think
Okay.
there is
Great
obviously
point.
a
I
bias.
think the great,
Yeah.
yeah. No, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. When you're finished, I think JLC will be the great person to rebut that because he pretty
Yes.
much.
Yeah. I mean, I understand people complaining about IQ and such, but the whole point of it is that it's supposed to be standardized. And yes, there may be components of it, such as verbal reasoning, that may be biased, but they remove that and they focus on things which are culturally insensitive, or that can be, right? Non-verbal reasoning, numerical things like this. Okay, and yes, maybe some tribes in rural parts of the world won't score so well. Okay, fair enough. But at the end of the day, what else can we use? Okay, this is a standardized as culturally insensitive test as you can have. And if you say, okay, fine, let's not look at IQ, we can look at other standardized tests such as the SATs. Okay, we can look at academic achievement, we can look at hourly wage, we can look at other metrics such as criminality and impulse control, unplanned pregnancies, percentage living in poverty. And across all these metrics, we're towards the bottom end, regardless if it's in Africa on a global scale compared to other continents. In the West, when you look at subpopulations, we're towards the bottom of that too, right? And then you look at the other side of the trend, you look at Chinese people, even in countries where the countries are poor, okay, they manage able to go and improve and move in an upwards trajectory. Okay, Philippines
Like
is developing
Malaysia.
exactly, Singapore and the Philippines, they come into the UK and I'm telling you, watch them now. They're going to move up towards probably Indian level of wealth within a couple of decades because they're swarming over to work in the NHS. They work together. They're Asian, so they got the IQ behind them, and they're going to improve and push us further down the bottom too. Okay, Bangladeshis are on the way to doing that too, as we saw in the statistics that I sent to Falcon and Jessica as well. Okay, and in the United States, the Filipinos are one of the highest earning groups in the United States. The Filipinos, yes, the Philippines, right? And the Philippines as a country is developing rapidly as well, even though they had that stupid Duarte idiot as president until earlier this year. Okay, so in conclusion, if you look at every other metric, okay, business, community, marriage, STD rates, petty crime, right? We're always to home ownership, always towards the bottom. And if you don't use IQ, you could use any of the things I just mentioned, and we're towards the bottom of that as well. Okay. So all I'm saying, not to make us feel bad or feel depressed, but we have to say, okay, maybe due to breeding patterns and environmental pressures that came before us, we didn't select to breed for intelligence or low quantity, high quality intellect individuals. That may have been a problem for us, okay, where we came from ancestrally. That may have caused problems, particularly Western Hemisphere blacks. Think about the breeding patterns. Did the smartest
That's a
ones,
good
were
point.
the smartest ones bred? Would you, if you were, and no, let's go back. In terms of domination, you think dumber people will be able to dominate other groups of people to such an extent unless they were more intelligent? Let's be real. Let's forget the IQ test. Let's forget about everything. In a situation where you're literally dehumanized, treated so poorly, the impetus to find a solution is so high, and you still couldn't do that for such a long time, right? Without assistance. Okay. You think that's not a sign of intelligence right there and then? I mean, so I'm asking this question. Let's be real and humble about this. The argument to be made, it's not a case of proving it. There's enough evidence to prove why we would be less intelligent than average. The problem is to dispute it without using excuses to explain why it's the case. I'm not saying why it's, I'm just stating the argument for low intelligence and the examples why it could be true are way more than the opposite.
Great points, bro.
And
Excellent rebuttal.
Falcon, I find this like IQ to be a very far-fetched sort of like topic. You can't really specify a person within a group. You know, it's only like an individual's capability that shows the longitude of what they can get done in the sense of like creating a rocket launcher, creating missiles, creating weapons and stuff like that. Those were something the Germans used in World War I and II to, like, conquer other European countries, and they tried to burn that with Japan's. And what did the Japans do? They fought back, and they actually built a nation to, like, help themselves out during that time. So, like,
That's a
it's
good
not
point. That's a good
it's not
point.
just about IQ. IQ is like just the whole concept.
That's a good point, man. The Japanese were heavily discriminated against. All the stereotypes. Oh, one stereotype: the Japanese won't make great pilots because they were carried on their mums' backs. Like typical Africans. Like, yeah, all these stereotypes, and they rose above it. So that's a great point. But we have a new guy in the chat called Bifole, and he hasn't said anything. I think your mic had a bit of static, so feel free to jump on if you have
Yeah,
anything to say about
can you
this.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that is right. I don't really believe what JLC is saying
Right.
because, yeah, he doesn't make any sense. How can IQ be like? How can IQ be that like that when? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Sharp 25.
See, now this guy,
Damn, we
if
need
he is
to
black,
we
I
need to
swear there's an
we need to
IQ
ban
test
this
right there.
guy, man. This is the same corny guy from before. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Does he have like a stuttering
Yeah.
issue? And so like maybe an impediment. So I'm not sure, but each time he tries to speak, maybe his coping mechanism is to laugh in the absence of being able to
Yeah, Falcon, you should
articulate
just
words. I don't
ban
know.
these trolls. Like, and yeah,
No. The thing is, when they come up, I'll come in the private chat. They come up, they show themselves who they are.
I know I'm a very
And
ugly
then,
looking dude, and that's something that I can't control. Like, unfortunately.
okay, bro, this isn't not about you, so we need to make this. We need to stay on topic, bro. But I mean, Ephraim, did you want to jump in? I don't believe you've had much to say in recent with the
Well,
IQ thing.
with IQ, if anything, I would say, even though there is valid evidence of such, of where those, I see it's more of a class thing more than a race thing, because if we're going to look at it in terms of class, I would say those between middle or lower do tend to get higher IQ than those who are much more in the upper level in terms of class.
But I
Because
mean, yeah.
because if we talk about in the race aspect, there is bias, and plus there is not so much conclusion, because even though those of those top race do have higher IQ, if it comes to terms of emotional intelligence, that's another case in itself, because research also shows that those who have higher IQ of sort or have high intelligence, they're also the ones who sadly commit more suicide in terms of society pressures and everything in between. Those same people, those same who have high IQ tend to do most crime, and so on and so forth.
Wait, can
So,
I just say something?
No, one sec, shot. Let
So-
Ephraim finish, and then we're gonna let Thomas speak because he's been on and off.
So if we're gonna go on the fact that, if we have better IQ to help society, help ourselves as black people, it will help, but I don't think it will help in terms of long term when it comes to helping in a community stance in terms of generational wealth.
Well, I mean, in
Yeah.
that case, I mean, wouldn't a high intelligence mean you would most likely not, have a better sense of delayed gratification? You won't give in to kind of shooting up the club and spending on junk, things that aren't worth
Well,
anything in the long run.
I
You
would
can
say,
save and you can plan, think of the future, think of your next kin.
yeah, I will say there is that there, but that's more of discipline and so on, having a moral stance on that. Because if you are going to say, well, this is not good because of more of a fact, more of logic, but not going in terms of emotion, not caring about the emotion, then sadly your own way of logic or what science have said will defeat the way society or where life is, because it's all about the balance. If anything, at the end of the day, it's not about who has high IQ. It's about more or less the balance and also discipline.
And I want to add on.
Great point. No, sure. 1 second. We're gonna go to Thomas, and then we'll come to you, bro. And then
Can I get in after Thomas, please? Because I've been trying to jump in, but
okay, sure. We'll do that. You haven't spoken in a while. Thomas, man, what's in your mind, bro? Thomas, you there?
Bro, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I all good? Can you hear me, bro?
There's a little bit of static, but we can hear you.
Bro, I don't know what's going on, man. Wow, this AO action, man. I ain't get my internet sorted out.
Don't worry, it's good now. It's good now.
So when it comes to intelligence shit, awesome. You know, when it comes to this intelligence shit, I think there's so many factors. How I measure intelligence is not only academics, but you know, doing the right thing. You know, for example, if you're gonna do the right thing, most likely it's gonna, you know, boost your status in society. Like, you know, these Asians, I wouldn't say they're naturally intelligent, but I'll say they're very hard workers.
What do you mean by naturally intelligent? I need to understand what that means, because
all the
I've met many Nigerians, many Ghanaians that are like human calculators.
Hold on.
Everyone isn't every human being naturally intelligent to some degree.
Yeah. No. Maybe I shouldn't use it because I'm naturally intelligent, but and also other people are naturally intelligent. But when it comes to the Asians, they are very hard workers. Very hard workers. Because you can be academically bright, but you're not a hard worker. That's why I've seen a lot of naturally smart people drop out of university. But I'll say the Asians are very hard workers. They promote all the right things. And that's why, but I'm gonna say this, bro. White people respect Asians more than black people in the UK and in the US as well. They respect in the UK.
What's that respect based on?
And that's why you see them in positions of power.
What's that respect based off of?
Well, I wouldn't say I couldn't find any statistical data on that. But I would say just based on the sheer numbers of how many Asians are in high establishments like politics, IT, banking, business, you see a lot of Asians. You don't see any black people. And also, bro, when it comes to work, you know, in the work hierarchy, white people are always first, then it's the Asians. But actually, bro, some Asians, they're saying, screw white people, we're gonna create our own businesses. And so that's why I think white people respect Asians more, because they're not gonna take their BS. They're not gonna take all these labels and stereotypes. No. So
you're saying they have more resistance to being stereotypes. Is that what you're saying? They have more resistance culturally to, you know, to being a stereotype.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great points, bro. Let's let Jessica jump in.
Yes. That's
great point. Great points, bro. Okay, Jessica X. What do you think?
I think in this conversation, I think some people are a bit, I don't want to say in their feelings over the IQ, but we have to acknowledge that the IQ test shows a level of competence, and definitely a level of competence that people are looking for in the workforce. Hence the correlation between the groups that have higher IQ and they're higher, they make up a higher percentage of the top positions that we see in the workforce, right? The most lucrative positions. I don't believe that any race is naturally more intelligent than others. I do believe it differs from individual to individual, but not on racial lines. But I think if we're going to ignore the importance of IQ, right, of knowledge, then how could you be surprised if you do remain at the bottom? Because the other groups who are doing better, they acknowledge the importance of it. And one thing that you see within the, let's say, the Black community, rather than Black people inherently being less intelligent, is that there is more of a, well, at school, that's where they learn. At home, I don't need to do that. The teachers are doing that. One thing you'll see in the Asian communities, whether it be Chinese or Indian or wherever, when they get home, their parents are also teaching them at home. They're going to after school clubs. They have, it doesn't just stop in school, is what I'm saying. So it's not that they're naturally more intelligent. Their intelligence is being nurtured. And that's something that we don't see as much in the Black community. So I feel like there needs to be more of it. But then I do get when people say that raw IQ is not the be all and end all. It's a very large part, but it's not the be all and end all. What you can see is some people who might score very highly on the IQ test can lack socially, right? They can lack socially and emotionally. And that is a hindrance because you can't work with people. So you can secure yourself a solid position, but when it comes to passing middle management, you might not necessarily get there because you don't know how to work with people. So it's about creating a well-rounded, cultivated individual, which is socially, raw IQ, right? Emotionally, but listen, you cannot take away that factor of raw IQ, because even if you neglect the others, the social, the emotional, you'll still want to be in a lot better position than if you just focused on emotional or you just focused on social. Those things aren't going to get you where you need to be in today's world. So I get what they're saying, but we cannot basically
we can't totally throw that out of the
out the
way,
window
man.
and say
All
it's
the other
biased,
groups,
it doesn't matter.
yeah, I get that. Great
But
point.
may I interject here slightly? I mean, but we can. As far as, because you're saying we can't completely discount it, but we definitely can. Unless it's made mandatory, then people literally can nominate whether they want to take an IQ test or not. And I mentioned it in the chat, but I've never applied for a job and been forced to take an IQ test. Even when I applied for uni, whichever uni I took tests for, I was never asked to take an IQ test. It's not a compulsory pathway. And so people can nominate whether they choose to hold it in esteem. And but to your point, I guess it does have some attributes which might reveal the latent potential of an individual. And yes, that can't be discounted. But again, it's just, I guess it's just a metric that I just don't see as necessary. I mean, I can go my whole life without taking the IQ test and I'll still feel like a well-rounded individual. But yeah, that's just
Can
I
I jump in?
took
Fair
an
points. Fair.
IQ test. My bad.
Can I jump in?
Jessica. What was your rebuttal?
I took an IQ test for university. So in order to, like, on entry, they made everyone take, and well, it's not an IQ test, but it's like a competence test. Because of that competence test, I received a scholarship because of my score on that competence test. So universities are doing it. Because of that, I benefited, right? I got a scholarship, not a full scholarship, but a partial scholarship. So these things are in place, and they might not be under the term IQ test, but the tests are definitely there. In whether it can be for work, right? For university, for lots of different aspects of life, they're there. They're just not necessarily labeled IQ tests.
Yeah, great point. Great points. Let's let Shah 25 in because he wanted to talk on.
Can I go after?
Yeah, for sure, JLC.
Just a couple of days ago, went to the North Science Center in Sudbury, part of Northern Ontario, and there was a Northern Science Center museum. It showed mining. It showed all sorts of stuff that astronauts and individuals went through during their days. They talk about copper and nickel and kraton. They talk about all sorts of amazing stuff that most astronomers used back in the day to fly to certain areas, and I got to experience all sorts of stuff. But the whole point I'm trying to make out of that is that back in the day, I'm just gonna gonna keep it real. People were a lot more intelligent than they are now, and it's just a fact. During the 1800s, things were a lot more different compared to modern day. In terms of like living, the internet and social media has changed like the technology. I'm saying like it changed a lot in the sense that you can like talk to people from a distance, you can
Yeah.
do stuff, but like you can't like do perform what you have done in the past, like during the 18th century when things were a lot more different. So that's what I'm trying to make a point across. And I also got to see, the First Nations, those of you that don't know Native Americans, like, the Cherokee, the Métis, the Apache, the Ojibwa, all sorts of these tribes. They didn't have any technology when they were here. They were like here for so long that, they just had a natural land. They didn't like, commit to anything. They didn't like do anything as a stuff for a group until the
Okay, we
the
get that.
British.
Yeah. Okay, great point. JLC, you wanted to come in?
Yes, please. Yes. So I just want to say something. I'm not even focused that much on IQ. Okay, I don't care if you don't like the IQ test or not. The undeniable fact is, we, on average, as a people, definitely score lower than other groups, be that Indian, Chinese, most definitely, Jewish, of course, and European. That's undeniable, cannot be disputed. That's a fact. Okay, we can say whether or not the IQ is a valid measure of intelligence, but what else can we use? Okay, and if we move on to other things which could be used for form of intelligence, like life, again, many aspects of life, such as poverty, STD rates, children not doing well, social mobility. We're all towards the bottom for that. That's fine. We could just that's fair enough. Moving forward in a positive direction, I think the way to solution to this is basically to try and breed for intelligence. Now, I'm not saying we have to have a permit to breathe and an IQ test to breathe, but the reality is the way things are going, the pool of genetic material for intelligence among mixed race black and black groups in the UK, okay, it's going to get worse. Because the ones that do, let's just say that the higher your intelligence, the more you earn, which loads of studies say this is true. Not everyone, but usually, in order to earn a good wage, you have to have intelligence. Be that illegal or legal, in order to earn high wages, you have to be fairly smart most of the time, unless you're a celebrity. There's a correlation there, right? And the ones who do get to that level, they tend to date out. Okay, so it comes to the point that the ones that are fully black, then they may be reproducing with people who have lower intelligence than average, so the children become less competitive. Now, let's just say the environmental factor is true, and that environment is what leads to intelligence, right? If you're producing with people who are also poor, such as yourself, the environmental factor, combined with any potential genetic disadvantage you may have, means your children will be uncompetitive, and the cycle will repeat and repeat and repeat. And Candace Owens said this very true word: you become a permanent underclass. And the way things are going in the West, the United States, Brazil, UK, pure black people will become a pure underclass. And of course, mixed race people, they'll go marry with white and other groups, and therefore your blackness is gone. But in terms of underclass potential, we are going to become a permanent underclass because the environmental factors are against us, and potentially the genetic factors are against us, and it's getting worse. Because let me tell you this, there's a lot of Hong Kong people coming over to the UK, IQs 106 on average, with more disciplined as well. Let's throw that in there. We've got Indians flooding the border. Okay, that's true. Yes, there's tons of them coming over. You've got Filipinos coming over because the NHS is a mess and need loads of nurses. Southeast Asian, high IQ, very hardworking, right? All these groups stay within their own people and they have higher IQs and they're more disciplined and harder working than us, right? We're screwed. So everyone who's listening to this stream, I want you to please crack open a book, turn off your TV, educate yourself, earn money, and try to improve your life so you can leave or have options. Because I'm the biggest indicator of intelligence is in this society, everything's based on money. So you need to use your intelligence to earn money. That's my IQ is how much money do you have? How much money are you earning? That's the IQ test right there in the West. Because trust me, you may not care about your IQ number, but you sure as hell care about how much money is in your bank account. And I'm out.
Hey, fair point. We haven't heard from Diego in a while. If you want to jump in, if you have anything to say on the topic overall, as the first person coming on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Jessica and JLC made some compelling points. To be honest, I wouldn't say that I really disagree with much of what they said. Like I said, there has to ultimately be some measure. I think from the first stream that this kind of topic was brought up, in case it got lost in translation, I wanted to draw a distinction between obviously the IQ test as a measure of intelligence and the outcomes. And my own kind of contention in that is, you can have like an average IQ test, but your outcomes may, transcend what other people may have who have like a hierarchy. Does that make any sense? But of course, if we're looking at it on a black level, I personally just believe that it's just to reiterate part of what I said before, I think it is environmentally determined. I don't think that African or black parents actually put more, value in even paying attention to their kids. Let's even just take out maybe an emphasis on education. There may be something to do with like philosophy or ethics or what have you, which is still not seen as a priority to cascade. Do you understand? You hear, I'm just gonna keep it real, you hear, I'm sure everybody on the stream, probably in the comment section, has heard how many like African parents talk about how hard their lives are. That they are, look, I'm a single mom, or I'm a single this, or I'm doing that, or I'm working hard. But in many cases, the outcomes are not there to justify the so-called hard work, that hard working image that they push out. And in some cases, some of these parents are content with seeing their children, especially their sons, I'd argue, kind of being portrayed as bad. So you're almost being socialized to be bad. Some of these kids that are, shanking each other and so on and so forth. The school kind of socialized in the way they are, but the parents didn't really care enough to kind of interject and say, okay, let me defend the image, or you get my point. They didn't really try to make sense of what was going on. Just like, okay, fine, whatever. So ultimately, certain parents, in my opinion, that have produced ASBO kids, I'm talking about black ASBO kids, they have basically they've thrown their kids under the bus, in my opinion.
So
Because the society, just my own take on things, the society tends to judge the children more harshly than it does the parents, particularly the mum. Do you get my point? And in the society, and I've said this before, in a society where you put the mums first over the children, you are going to have problems. Do you understand? You can only kick that, those problems down the road for so long before they actually mushroom and you see the outcome from those things. So I do, like I said, just to kind of wrap up, I do agree with much of what JLC and Jessica said. And I do think that the parents need to be held accountable. I think this is just my own contention. People can make of this what they will, but I think it's very important to push the idea that these parents have, made some poor decisions, so that when others come up, so when we have children, for example, then it will be like an inflection point in terms of actually doing what our parents didn't do, if that makes any sense. The
Great
parents
point, bro.
Falcon, I want to ask you a question.
So
No, I was just for wrapping up. The parents have to be held. I'm talking about these particular practices. It has to be held up as a model of what not to do, and that's the only way that we can see maybe over the next few decades some kind of measurable difference. So anyway,
yeah, great points, bro. If Frame wanted to jump in, and then we'll go to Shot 25. Then we're gonna go for closing thoughts as we're in overtime. If Frame, what was on your mind?
About the whole IQ test and the fact that it's also related to African parents and so on. Because my question to Diego is, do you think that African parents don't value their children as they thought they will? Because if we're going to look at it realistically, even with the IQ test into play and so on, what the system is being, if anything, doing, I think everybody else now, I wouldn't say it's only black people, but everyone else in terms of race and class, do you think a system like that is failing mostly us as black people, even though we're at the bottom? Do you think it is now worsened if the parents not involved at all, even though those same parents would claim that they suffered, they came to this country and they're not and seeing their children not doing what they're doing it back home? Do you think that there's this kind of I would say there's like an error amongst that kind of system they want to put in between us and between the Africans and
But
the
you know what? To be fair, I'll kind of say that Asian parents also put down the same kind of belief that, oh, we worked harder than you. You know, things weren't easy. You got it easy. Look at you. You know, you don't have to wear your hijab, and you know, you can do this and that. Wear your makeup.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I agree, Falcon. I mean, I think what it is with a lot of the Asian parents that say that kind of stuff, it's to kind of instill a certain level of ethics in their children. But they typically tend to have, in many cases, they tend to have something to show for
Mm,
these sacrifices. There's something measurable. You know, Jessica had a good example of her dad, providing a quite a healthy deposit for when it came down to get. So the sacrifices of eating, certain noodles, mushroomed into her basically having that, foundation. Do you get my point? So what I'm trying to say to you with Asians, I mean, I'm no Asian. Many Asians that I know will tell me that their parents may have not had, given them a perfect upbringing. You understand?
mm,
But and I say this view, and I think many people probably believe this without actually saying it the way I'm about to say it, but perfection is overrated. Typically, when you go for the next best thing, you typically tend to have outcomes that are measurable, that you can actually say, okay, fine, this is the sacrifice, this is the outcome. The thing with African parents, I tend to find, and I've come across different types of parents who do have progressive mindsets, right? Especially in the case of, like, I'm sorry, but like the West Africans that I'm obviously more familiar with, there's more talk, there's more smoke and mirrors about how great and sacrificial the parents are. But like I said, when the children demonstrate certain, shall I say, pathologies, then
mhm.
the children that tend to carry the can and the responsibility more than the parents. And the thing is, there's almost like a kind of echo chamber. A lot of the parents don't hold the other, like the certain communities where some of these African parents, they'll use the church, these overnight services as a way to congregate with their fellow, parent types, right?
Mhm.
They don't challenge each other. Do you get my point? It's left to God's will. So if they are lazy in terms of how they actually, execute these parental, tactics, skills, whatever, right? Then they can say that, God's will, God's will, God's will.
Mhm.
Point. So I'm just trying to say they hide behind smoke screens, and a lot of children, it's one thing to actually respect your parents as them, your parents, where they establish a boundary. It's another thing altogether where you're so petrified of your parents that you're not even if you don't confront them, you're not able to critique how, some of the flaws and what you
Right,
might be
right.
able to correct course.
Yeah,
You get the point. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, what Ill Town Jack Boy says here in the comments is also a lot of Asians get disowned when they do crime, which is a deterrent. You know, a lot of us in the West laugh at the honor killing type thing, or a lot of people say openly that, oh, if I bring home this type of guy, my family are gonna disown me. In terms of criminals as well, is it, I mean, we're speaking too, I think we're going too far into the IQ, which I didn't plan on doing, but just day-to-day things like how you associate with the criminals in your family. It's like when people get released, people I've known get out of the pen. It's like, yeah, you're back. Yeah, like we're so easy to embrace them, but to be honest, I don't have that deeper intel in the Asian community, but I would suspect that they don't have the same the same kind of magnetism to criminals, people who've messed up, effed up their society, right? Or is this an exaggeration to anyone?
No,
yeah,
I
what
I
no,
agree.
go for it, go for it.
No, I agree. I think you're right. Criminality isn't celebrated the same way in that culture as it is in the black community. Here is kind of glorified, right? But then I think what I see mainly is that the black community have assimilated to Western culture faster than the Asians, right? So the
Mhm.
Asians are very much more tight knit culturally than black people are, just as a general rule. And because of that, we assimilated quicker and we saw the problems arise quicker. So you're more likely to dip into the criminality, certain aspects of Western culture, you're more likely to indulge, whereas the Asians were not, because everything is, like you say, very it's very cultural. If you go back to the honor killings, everything that they instill is cultural, but it's hitting them too. it's hitting them too. So although, like I said, we look up to the Asian community, I said before, I can show you the stats. Divorce rates in the Asian community are up 100% in 5 years.
Yeah,
It's
because it
hitting
went from what 5% to 10%. Is that is that
at that quick a rate in 5 years. If that is to continue, their culture as we know it is basically down the toilet. That's what it's signifying. That's what it's signifying, and it's not going from 5%. It's higher than that, but it still shows a pretty drastic leap. So
sorry to interrupt, but don't you think like this conversation is like very broad? Like it's like you're trying to like find which insect can like, you know, perform better than the other insect despite, you know, being the same, but like
No, I'll overrule that. It's necessary because in this stream we are comparing, you know, as shabby as it might sound, we're comparing two groups of people. So yeah, the comparison thing is the theme of this stream. So I'm going to overrule that.
yeah,
And may I just
don't believe that.
actually just
My bad. Oh no, it's okay, Mr. Uganda.
no, I was gonna say that I actually do like that Diego, Jessica, and JLC have sort of really explored and expanded upon like this IQ as well as this. Even Jessica's point about divorce rates. A lot of this has to do with environment and what we choose to esteem as important to our culture. I'm actually very pleased that we've been able to compare how different communities score because it's not so. It's actually kind of comforting to know that the environment plays a big part in our disposition because it means that we can change it, but we do have to be willing. There's not like this biological predisposition that people want to sort of impose. A lot of it is by choice. And if the Asian community's divorce rate is like Jessica conveys, and it's gone up that much, it stands to reason that there are a lot of communities that are about to get hit really hard by what the culture has to offer. But if we sort of have an awareness of what we're dealing with, we can counteract that. But we just have to choose what we hold as sacred in our community, and we have to throw away what's counterintuitive.
Hey, great point, Mr. Uganda. But hey, guys, I think this is all I've got. But for now, we're gonna have to go into closing thoughts because
wait,
it's getting a bit late
guys,
as
can
well.
I just say
Oh,
one
sure.
thing?
You can speak, but just make this your closing thought. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Like Maroon77 said, you know, Asia is probably the most growing and developing country to this day, more than any other continent. So it kind of makes sense. They come in large numbers compared to any other groups, and you know they outperform. So like that, factor that in. So like things are gonna be unfair, but you know you have to like, you know, over count it with, you know, more strategies and like plans to like, you know, what specific destinations you're trying to create to be more successful, and you know things that you're gonna do. Like, you know, it's always good to have like a checklist, a whiteboard, or you know some sort of thing that you can have just to like you know be more, how do I say it, like like improve as a group within a couple generations collectively, but like that's going to take a lot of work.
Right. A great point, and it's true. I mean, yeah, Asia has a bigger population. You know, a lot more diversity. So yeah, it might not be a fair comparison. I can accept that. Anyone else for final closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, JLC, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but quickly about your point about the whole criminals. I mean, at the end of the day, what were they getting excluded from? There's not much of a community here. Like, what were they gonna? I mean, how could you ostracize someone when you don't have anything to ostracize them from?
Yeah, it's like they fit right back in when they come back. You know, still chilling on the porch. Like, yeah, man, I robbed that guy that day.
Exactly. But closing thoughts. Yeah, as I said before, you know my position. I do believe, on average, in the West, we do have lower IQs. Whether it's genetic or environmental, I don't know. But I do think, on average, the average black person in the West is operating on a lower intellectual plane. I think it's undeniable. And on the group level, it is true. We lower average operate on a lower intellectual plane. In terms of moving forward, because I like looking towards the future, you know, I think we should just learn and earn as much as we can. And I say learn how to earn, make money, but also learn more about your heritage, your culture, and give yourself options to straddle the fence and have options in a predominantly black country. Because I don't see a future for, unfortunately, Falcon, I don't see a future for us in the West the way things are going. Because I don't think we're competitive enough as a group, and the competition is going to get harder as Asia ascends, and more immigrants come over from Asia to take the small remaining bit of money left in the West.
Mm.
All right,
And you know, we're almost in lieu to get a Asian prime minister, got a Asian mayor of London. You know, it's like that influence is just you can't not see it any longer in Britain.
yeah,
Uh,
Falcon and Jessica.
But sure, this was closing thoughts, bro. So
Just
JC's
one more last
done.
thing.
No, bro. To respect the panel, this is the closing thought, as I said. So, okay.
Maybe I'll
Feel
say
free
it
to
in another
write.
live stream.
Feel free to write in the chat, super chat, if you would like to have your point aired. You know, I appreciate that. But everyone, JLC, salute to JLC because he was the patriarch of this live stream. You know, I appreciate if you got any other stats that you might want us to bring up in a future stream. Feel free to email me at falconblizzak@gmail.com. But salute to you, JLC, and for supporting the stream too. Was it Jessica X? Did you want to have a final thought on that?
I was going to go next. I think the major differences between, like I said, what we see in the successful communities versus the non-success is, and this is in immigrant groups, because white people ratio, if we're looking at, the stats that we put on earlier, they're doing even worse than black people, right? But one thing that we see amongst the ethnic groups is community, right? A sense of community. The Jewish community, the Indian community, the Chinese community, the Filipino community, whatever you want to name, they all stick together. You will have immigrants that came over here from India 40 years ago, and guess what? That woman still barely even speaks English. Why? Because she sticks to her group, right? So the culture does not get tainted. I agree, you have to assimilate a bit, but what I see in the black community is this heavy focus on assimilation, wanting to drop your native culture and indulge in the culture of the country that you're in to a certain extent to get by. But I feel like what a lot of people are dropping with that assimilation is the foundation that kept everybody intact and kept everybody successful. You can see the difference between, let's just say, Nigerian immigrants, very strong work ethic, very strong focus on education. All of those things are very strong. Then you look at the first generation, second generation, those factors start to wane. So I think we need to focus less on assimilation and more on upholding the cultural integrity and the sense of community that we know works. The factors that we know work, and that is education, that is career. Those things need to be priorities, and we don't do that enough in the black community. And a focus on family. All of those cultures have a significant focus on family. And
Are you
JLC,
saying, sorry to jump in, are you saying they don't focus on pump and dump and
no, they focus
social
on
arrangements?
family units and building together. They understand the importance of it. In every successful community, look at it, their divorce rate is lower, their rate of marriage is higher. Everything is higher when it comes to family. So they are family focused and they understand the importance of that. JLC, I'm not saying race mixing is the way forward, because if we look at the stats that you gave, guess what? The products of black people race mixing tend to do even worse than just the black community itself, right? If we're going off the stats that you showed, black people as a whole, when they mix with white people, they're not doing as well. I'd be the exception to the rule, but what he showed is the general rule. So I'm not saying to race mix. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the focus on ideals. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my final thoughts. I came late, but thank you for having me.
It's always good having you, man. I appreciate your inputs and good to have you as always. Look forward to your future streams if you come back on again.
All right, bye.
Yeah, take care. Anyone else for final thoughts?
Okay, I'm gonna jump off. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think this was another rich discussion. Okay, am I good, bro? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was another great stream. Yeah, bro, just keep up with these intellectuals live streams, bro. They're really good.
Oh, I appreciate that. But it's you guys that make the stream, man. So it's something that we should keep going. You know, I'm just the conduit. I'm just a little channel. But yeah, I've always said that some of the talking points in online is, it can be simpleton. It can be, I'm not saying that YouTube is going to change people, change society, but it's a start to have a conversation on a Friday night rather than being out there learning some game from your dating coach to hey, but I'm not shaming anyone if that's where you are, but I'm just saying that there's space for something else, and that's what I'm trying to fill. But I appreciate you too, Thomas, for being on, being consistent. Mr. Uganda, did you want to say any final thoughts?
Yeah, brilliant stream. I actually really enjoyed the stream because I liked that I was challenged on a lot of what I thought, and to my surprise, I wasn't quite aware that IQ tests, a facet of IQ tests, are psychometric tests. So I was schooled a little bit. I like it. I rate it.
Yeah.
I think it's good that we explore topics like this because iron sharpens iron. So if adopting or even considering a metric like IQ allows us to sort of center ourselves, to really look at our competency and how we can develop ourselves, then go for it. I'm for it if it's a benefit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, always appreciate you, Mr. Uganda, coming on, man. I see you haven't come online in months, but if you do, I'm gonna be aiming to promote you, man, because I like your balanced, points of view and persona, nice and chilled. So salute to you. I appreciate you coming on. Diego Ephraim, anyone wants to go for closing thoughts?
Okay, it's an interesting stream, a good live stream. If anything, I've learned a lot in terms of IQ, even though I don't think IQ is like the way forward in terms of progression. And also, Falcon, you and I, and maybe Diego, know that this country ain't gonna bring an Asian man as prime minister. As long as the north of England, which is more or less 90% white. This country.
But isn't this a choice for the Conservative Party, right? For them to make their leader, or
that's true. But as long as those old boomers, the same people who voted Brexit, voting for this term of the next PM, they ain't gonna bring in no Asian prime minister.
It's gonna be curious to see what happens.
Even his own people that don't even rate him. So if his own people them don't rate him, what do you expect the whole of England will rate him? And plus, this guy was with who? With Boris Johnson, who created this whole scenario. So for me, it ain't gonna happen. All I have to say is that first, as Black people, we have to achieve better. We have to let go of the paths that we thought it was great, but then it's not, and be more educated, and also follow your heart, your passion, and also, parents will always be parents. They say things which you thought, oh, that valued back then, but looking at it now, it won't be this. It's not the same. Even things are not the same after this pandemic. So for us to follow what they say and do as they do, it's not conducive at this time, because the jobs that we have back then is not the same as today. I reckon by the next 10, 20, or even the next decade or so, most of the jobs that we're going to have is automated. And for us to kill ourselves and go back and forth and give money and save money and take money and do all this stuff, as they say, you will die before your time. And there's nothing worse. And sadly, which most South African parents don't even understand. And sadly, the call of death comes in unabruptly. You die before your time, and then that's where your children will sadly do what they want, and then that's it.
Great points.
So for me, so just do as you, just take your time and do what's in you, not what someone else or what society says. Because at the end of the day, you only have one life.
Great points, bro. Great points. I appreciate it as always. Appreciate you coming up as always, man. Great insight from you. So salute to Ephraim. And finally, last but not least, Diego Efe. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Just I'll try to wrap it up as quick as I can. Thank you for everybody that's on the stream. Not so much the trolls, but yeah, it was a pleasure to basically kind of chop up some games, so to speak, with
Yeah.
more of a progressive focus. Just real quick, so Jessica made a point which kind of reminded me of the first part of my book. And she said the thing about how there's been a quick assimilation, there's been this quicker tendency to assimilate into the broader mainstream rather than clinging on to certain virtues. That couldn't be more pertinent. And it's the reason why, part of the reason why I wrote my book, because effectively this is what it is, right? Although like black people who are in the diaspora are very diverse, right? From even across different cities in the UK to those who are in America, Caribbean, etc. Yeah, all in the diaspora. There's one thing that happens unless you hold out some kind of distinct culture, even if it's creolized culture. Do you get my point? You're just gonna get absorbed, and that means you no longer have a diasporic culture. So the best that will happen is for West Africans, Dirty December in Lagos and Accra. That's as good as it will get. And then the next generation after that will just be like, I think I had grandparents that once came from such and such place. Do you get my point? So that point in time, you're no longer really from wherever you claim to be from. It's more like a distant primordial homeland rather than somewhere where you actually have roots. Am I making sense? So that's something that African parents have probably failed on say en masse, but you get my point. A significant number have failed because they've not really at least had an informed discourse. What's the deal going to be? Do you lot think you're going to stay here? Do you lot think you want to go back? Do you want the transnational option? Do you want the option of either? And then
Okay,
plan
but just to imagine, we're a group of Black Brits are staying here in the UK versus a group of British Asians who are staying there. How can we kind of match each other or equal the playing field, so to speak, in terms of the so-called Asian versus Black in Britain?
That's a good question. I think that we need to have like an amalgamated Black business commerce. Do you understand? Chambers of commerce, a kind of equivalent organization where you can have associations. There might be some subscriptions, so that people are not just like yeah black get me, but there's actually some kind of subs that are put forward so that people are buying into this idea, and there's discussions and there's an agenda. You look at the likes of them. I think Ephraim made a good point about this automation era we're moving into. Not solely just about automation, but it's the changes in global economy, and it's going to impact this sense of this almost pathological need to spend money and instant gratification, right? You got the World Economic Forum. We need to have effectively like a Black economic forum of sorts, but it has to be one. I'm not sure if the word Black will help. It could be
That's
British
another topic.
Afro. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Or
Yeah.
BAAC, British African Caribbean Chambers of Commerce. So there has to be something where there's a discussion. It can happen where there might be a conference, maybe once or bi-yearly, in person, and there could be a number of streams where we have an economic and educational forum. Even on a small, even though it's obviously not going to be on the scale of the World Economic Forum, you're now producing effectively like an important block. Do you understand? One that you get my point. You're now putting subs together. You can now lobby for certain outcomes. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But I don't think we need a ton of Black people to be part of it. Just a few that will be interesting. And the subs don't have to be crazy. It could be something, I don't know, £10 a month. The whole point of it maybe might be to cover expenses. But the reality is that it's more so about people psychologically buying into it. And then last thing I was going to say, it's a question to you and I guess to the audience. Do you think that the prosperity gospel, right, which is preached in many different Black churches in the diaspora, has it been, what's the word I'm looking for here? Has it been a detriment in terms of instilling that whole kind of, I better pass my neighbor, let me buy this car, let me buy this thingy, let me go on holiday and take Instagram pictures? Do you think that there's a connection between the two? Because even in the instances where there are those people that their parents push them, right, to be the best, one of the Black kids, what tends to be the end goal? Do you understand? Because sometimes it's just work hard and then figure it from there. So if we live in a culture that's pathologically consumption based, right, then they're naturally going to fall into what's there. But anyway, I've said enough.
Well, that is a great question for another stream. That might be the next stream. But as always, Diego, it's great having you on. Great
Thanks for
insight,
having
great
me, man.
intellect. So I appreciate everyone who came up on the panel. Again, you guys make the stream. Very interesting show. Everyone who supported with super chats and liked and comments, I appreciate everyone. But as always, expect another stream Tuesday, Fridays in the hour of 10. I know I'm going to get better with making it more accurate. But as always, I appreciate everyone joining in. So have a good weekend. For tonight, I just want to say peace and expect more streams coming up in the future. But for now, it's your boy Falcon Blizak out. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.